Plan. The United States federal government should implement a low-carbon fuel standard system in the aviation sector through a market-based instrument. The advantage in Taiwan. Fossil fuel lines is high across every level of military supply chain. The air force is the largest culprit. COVID-19. The duty consumes 80% energy. The health defense unit energy use fails. Unit consumption brings high cooperation and intensive and efficient. Energy supports warfighters through secure, resilient generations, storage, transport, aircraft, intel. In cyber duty efforts increase gradually, replacing some vehicles. Military has room for air. The air force is the largest user of petroleum and sustainable aviation. Unlocks multiple advantages for Taiwanese deterrence. 1. Operational effectiveness. Green aviation ensures flexibility and reduces dependencies. March 24. Fossil fuels pose challenges to energy security. ICF revolutionary aviation by more resilient alternative by diversifying military reduce dependency, but again, promise. This will be produced for biomass and power advantages, ability to reduce domestically, reduce vulnerabilities, and classified. Ensure mobility and effectiveness of military is vulnerable for decades. Aspiration to no forces of regular use. The ICF is critical for resilience, operational security, flexibility, and second is supply chains pricing. Volatility sees power to adversaries. Number 22. Volatility of oil security, vulnerability to more oil reported, reduced dependence on aerospace for energy is the largest user of the union. Plus transition towards clean energy alternatives, reduce cost for private volatility, raise prices, faster fuels affordable alternatives, save maintenance cost, ability to save Italy on to maintain and save lower costs, even small improvements have impacts. And 3 is green coalitions. SAF create green coalitions and performance gains that revitalize Chinese deterrence. Element 22. New fuel for America with a significant energy increase, speed, and climate. 12 production effect, significant impacts on defense, large chances of diversity, effect, defense. SAF good rebel security, feedstocks, Wesley, source increase central whatever production ability to construct beyond restriction to the rebel area. SAF increase performance, requiring no change in logistics. US service model for Europe, creative food, provides performance increase, field culture, technical advantage, increase payload, and rate challenges. SAF is not competitive because of Omaha's market centers or the challenge moving financing capital of West America's most valuable potential partners for climate is biggest issues, which is South Pacific. America looks to bring countries in network use climate as cooperative committed with US governments. One only SAS securities by ensure stability, leverage capital, leveraging allow for local production. The B-52's action economic system result in network of facilities to produce power projection. That's key to overtaking Chinese HUAD. Value 23. Central rules of government power exchange. Leverage necessary to maintain effective deterrent Chinese significant US power project power using air power. China deploying advanced air systems. Doing factors to attack revealing threats to use power projections to deterrence to invest. This is the availability of AF plus increased launch capabilities. Absent air dominance. China will invade Taiwan. Bravo 23. Air Taiwan could destroy aviation Taiwan to not strength against China's weakness that constantly go on to offense and asymmetry approaches. Deter aggression air dominance necessary condition for deterrence. Shields can defeat Chinese and Russian aggression. We cannot deter air Taiwan. Liberty China's air security amphibious ops. Succeeding only 4% of the time without air security. Air readiness to deter and Taiwan crisis goes nuclear. Code 23. And war over Taiwan either China the right schools. Consider using to use us. China is trying to improvements nuclear use documents cast down and if you possibly get treated in a crisis. There's nothing about CNC that will prevent first use leadership by using capabilities not prevention against Taiwan. Military or leadership is a game of Taiwan's facilities administering Japanese strike China use nukes against forces facility or territories leadership putting engine nuclear use early to could be able to de-escalate likely standard for US first use will be an attack against an invasion force very has retaliation of on the whole it's hard to imagine how the United States strategies able to or start to contemplate damage limiting strikes given the number of nukes and low pressures energy. Early vessels are a target for strikes, not just target use for constant impact the number of vessels to conduct a blockade and invasion is likely out not to lose 25. CCP likely to invade reinvasions of policy military engagement rules around SES rules are reversals for invasion coordination bombers essays and in summary tech and total defense military bases sent to lose warships and surveillance around Taiwan against data about invasion increased pressure. The larger exercises like system of 22 brigades and 350 warships and Taiwan war is existential for Taiwan. McCoy 23 China invasion when Taiwan was to become a war for cities devastated thousands dead, leave 20 million dead in space and it is irreversibly devastates Taiwanese citizens. U24 Taiwan's population will shrink 15 million amid Asian population average growth rate decline caused by Taiwan war never having implications unbearable. Taiwan exhausted economic recession, plummeting growth taken by China political process including Hong Kong and the consensus of experts and passing fears prove revisionism. G24 Chinese interventions refer authoritarian government anxiety about autocracy and officialized perceived threats and multiple challenges that ability democracy China's military urgent issue authoritarian government continue not for econ no expectation Chinese democratization area relations along Western domination possible other refugees power challenges status quo realism. June 4th fact of Taiwan knows a crisis change relations consensus. With Beijing violating global government, order reaching shape world with authoritarian model, and China can't be deterred. Favorable. 22. Key reason for attaining current resistance. China can be deterred with U.S. policy or small degrees. Conservatives by 2020, however, China not motivated to take 45 isolates and controlled by others, also not limited foreign vessels for exercising no course. Political states is not with U.S. China is not control of SES by maritime militia. Germany and no backup and necessary wishes that China is willing to provoke major conflict caution. Suggests it can also be deterred and confronting the possibility of Taiwan invasion is an imperative. Buckley 24. And House Timer, the fully active betray chaos that comes to Chinese invasion of blood. Protest is sending into blood. China's serious efforts to efforts by China to take island producer wanted to control Taiwanese people out of complacency about war. Over the possibility of talking about the biggest fear of the ancient Taiwan dispersed is hard. The possibility experts he has a possible anti-Sino opinions and atomic group parties and champion anti-Sinos and who suffer discrimination, marginalized cultural appropriation, supplanted, Taiwanese and even Chinese culture speakers, and violence. Local experts and sessions when punish Taiwanese share a story of oppression, community resident protects us of belonging. There's no single disciplinary impulse within IR. Back in 21, idea critique and essay to move beyond IRs become trochadal IR being hostages and risk of being exposed to discriminatory versus racist like colonial treatment this ignores manners in which with the experiment tending to alliances or country divisions of the walk which is problematic contemporary movements of power reaches to breathing against globalist order and incorporating is a cultural violence for the populist politicians, Western chauvinists and white talk can lead to marginalization of these for no there's no cohesive opportunity model that forces instruction to the same tools are mobilized racist and gender absolutist critical items and no tool to counter arguments criminal regards except for may distract from rigorous critique mechanical make the same gesture and the international order is continually constructed while in 19 the universal order which is automatic practice overall the global order next group living human structure through local actions order never be close to hospital closure despite the human desire for cultural certainties and positive behavior generating theoretical applied practice the global order is linked to medical contingency of being or the lack of order and any symbolic order the best obviously maybe becomes towards the challenges of politics decisions for the conversation which go beyond fixity and imperfect but pragmatic solutions are critical epistemic theory empowers the CCP figures 20 get positionized agents of epistemic violence just to revolution typing that was seek to combat question to educational spirits company figure ideas cultural authenticity legitimate efforts of regimes risking many values and which scholars rely epistemology different subjects be defeating mission generalize the conscious comes to champion someone who reduces your steps with the expertise of the otherwise enable contested coloniality colonial current program negative agenda critique of colonialities whole strong deal likely to opposite neoliberals but Beijing will be more than happy for scholars to fulminate against West while embracing of epistemological diffidence and Chinese people have repeatedly rejected attempts at communication downplaying the risk is violence Lorenzo 24 fundamental disagree with the CCP assert itself as a sole government integration Taiwan inclusive of political dominion controversial legitimacy culmination of retribution with Taiwan but raised by the PRC and during like this support for integration Taiwanese people have rejected unification blowing data confers persistence Taiwanese determination history over significant Chinese history overall majority no longer identifies as Chinese the finally solvency of federal aviation LCF is necessary sufficient the place mechanisms to keep certainty durability and efficacy to control 23. SGC and IRS after applications for SWATs to cover SASU's relies on willingness to pay for policies required to similar EPA design the aviation have taken revenue credits policy CDs will reduction by 20 their valuability annual cars and utilities create certain dual taking direction not provide credits or other sectors have these facilities would include activities of the biosimulation they function LCI using per data and equivalent actions to incorporate two values like input copies of reduced emissions for feedstock unlike emissions including LCI maintains equivalent not just with the SAF work various amendment blood primary status outside sustainably until making constant pre-requirements for clear single production to use the precedent-based mental regulation reviewed maintains for investors to make authority 30 for actions in the current statute of support guard against reversal of such grab and created the use of special SAS demand through aviation with LCS has created positive estimated production to use and its markets are the only instrument to scale production capacity necessary to meet targets including 1.2 multi arrangements supporting scaling supply chain friendly networks and global market this is scale of capacity supply demand for SAS minus not significantly affect cost for obligated party tradable schemes utilize the market issues the supply case to recover SAS support current incentives are sufficient to determine reduce the way for SAS market to rely on innovative instruments above requires rapid attention to launch markets and money alone is insufficient some level of SAF is inevitable demand side market policy is needed control 23 leading barriers to SAS employment related elevated cost of market prices fossil fuel and high production cost ability to viable business cost of their investment amounts of also safe compared to other fuels that required limited capacity and consistent demand to SAS structural to support minus natural element of the ground price viability not driven by demand and wasteful to stand changing financial performance markets optimally align supply and demand potential 21 the absence of markets less viable as the case for SAS low scale cost high price to make SAS reduce cost of SAS production security of force source key and competence and safe trip and chicken and egg dilemma due to price increase direction to cost of less prices now scale without demand signal necessary to make production viable and obtain investments and additional places needed harmonize environmental with level playing field by using SAS through RIN credits under IRFS or IRS currently with programs with RINs price dropping prices triple credit makes we affordable study handles but incentives have RINs had a greater impact on viability watching securities NPV as 84% stronger financial cases for SAF objections to SAFs are baseless the studies prove growth and sustainable production does not increase domestic land use Cooper 24 using the satellite approach study shows growth in ethanol competence management and transition to cultivated stages over periodic same consistent with data from the US ODA and APA and sustainable aviation are negative emissions negative Adams 24 external benefits realized by generated to improve soil health more sustainably to cascading benefits and impacts to reduce emissions which reduce lifestyle emissions ATA SAF can be offset by soil quality conservation and improved improving soil health reducing movement fertilizing help to reduce N2O environmental benefits include soil quality reduce erosion improve air quality and enhance biodegradable facilities and reduce emissions and emissions to air power are baseless the US is more likely to be decolonial anti-imperial Judy 15 this argument undercuts many of US is imperial empire the US is not empire but anti-imperial against waste and empire building the US way anti-colonial rules in each way the US supported independence of European settlement colonies with modern reduction and helps sustain independence against reps and recon the Americas the US and now establishing empire pushing colonies for facility make the empire authority imperial projects in Germany Japan and Italy the US and tried anti-colonial independence movements and liberation circles alliances struck these clearly provide evidence for our claim and intervention as a relic of the past Yom 20 hegemony and the United States of intervention against foreign policy but non-intervention meaning relevance to regular regional order hegemony is not for lack of resources institutions not necessarily dominating region the US continues shining with conflicts across clear there's many conclude US has become more isolationist watching no order mental reality to Sierra but reduce the whole community intervention following efforts official rhetoric has been bellicose yet not a single threat intervention credible official response against Ramos media Pompeo conceded we do not want war. Not good for concept.
Okay, good?
Yeah.
I first want to talk about the plan. Does the app defend the entire aviation industry shifting to SAF?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Well, I mean, to be clear, the plan text says aviation sector.
Yeah.
We can have a definitional debate about what that applies to, but normal
But
means is
normal
the
means
entire...
probably every industry with a fucking plane, right?
Well,
yeah,
like
the aviation.
other sectors can use
Okay,
planes.
okay.
Those planes are owned by companies in the aviation sector.
Okay,
that would need to
so I
transition
guess
to
we can
safety.
all assume that shift happened post-plan. I don't think you want to defend anything else other than that, so it's fine. I want to talk about the first card on operationality. I guess the 1AC line says that we should revolutionize the military. How does the AF stop things like sexual assault in the military, etc., that's done by like the Air Force and other sectors, etc.?
So one is that is inevitable. I
That's
think
that's your first response?
Well, just like I don't know why that's a unique reason why the 1AC is bad.
Well,
1AC
I don't think
said-
you're answering my question though. Like you said, it's not a reason why the
Well,
1AC is
so
bad.
the
You're not answering my
military
question
has
about it.
ways to hold these people accountable.
So
Obviously,
what are
I
those
don't
ways?
agree, like people get convicted of sexual violence if they commit it, in the military.
Well, how did people prove
they're
that
held
happened?
accountable.
How do people prove that happened?
Well, the same process that would apply in all instances of sexual violence. Like
Okay,
people
so a lot
file
of
suits,
instances of
etc.
sexual violence don't end up getting, reprimanded because people find ways to lie and cheat. But also, courts just decide that there's no proof of such, so there's no reason to criminalize people for it. So how does the AF rectify those things?
I don't know why the app has to rectify that because our
Well,
argument
we'll
is
make
that we
arguments
need
why
to
you should have to
deter
later, but it's
Taiwan.
fine. I want to talk about the favorable evidence. It gives a bunch of other things, like maritime foreign vehicles being key to solve deterrence for China. Why is like aviation
So
key?
Fravel is largely about why deterrence works and gives
Yeah.
examples like those things.
Okay.
But the cards above, the Bremer evidence and the Bowie evidence are
Okay.
specific. The Bremer evidence concludes that only 14% of the time without air superiority was deterrence effective, which means that
But your card says
86%
other
of the
metrics.
time,
Okay,
air
that's fine.
power
I
is
want to talk about the
necessary.
second advantage. The U.S. is anti-imperialist, which is doing evidence. One is from 2015. Secondly, these cards are about stopping the colonization of the Americas and stopping World War III. What about
It's
this
about-
card accounts for recent examples of U.S. imperialism that have been going on in status quo?
So
Like, we can all
think
read the
that-
card.
We think that empirics are necessary. So
Okay, from
stopping
the
European
1700s?
So supporting, freedom and independence of European colonies. is
Okay, those
important.
are white people, first of all.
No.
I don't
The
know why
evidence
that's-
cites the example of the Monroe Doctrine, which said
Okay.
that European nations had to stay out of places like South America so that they didn't expand their colonial influence. It
But
also
that's
talks
not the card says that
It's
the
about
Monroe
European
Doctrine helps
settlers.
help against Europe's
Yeah,
it's the
everything.
Monroe
No,
Doctrine
it
helps
says
sustain
but it says to
independence
stop
against
recall.
European-
No,
Yeah,
it says
so-
to stop recolonization of the Americas
America's
immediately
in
after
reference
that.
to South America and the colonies.
The
they have
card
there.
doesn't say that. It says the Americas.
That-
It
that
talks
is
about the
North
U.S.
and South America.
This card is not about anything
There were
else
no
but the
European
U.S.
colonies
It's
in
fine.
North America.
It's fine.
I'm gonna send it out. It's just one and then the again.
Actually, wait. I want to take. Is it fine if I take cross after question? That's
Yeah.
fine. The last question. I want to talk about this card. The Yuan 20 card. On the highlighted part, it says that Trump is willing to guarantee restraint. Why is that true when Trump has suggested to do things like invade Greenland, Canada, and Mexico?
So we also think that the inverse is true. Like Trump
Why?
is isolationist. He stopped aid to Ukraine. He said that he wants
Well,
to pull out of
he
NATO.
stopped aid to-
and
okay,
he
that's all I need.
SOS. Like
That's fine.
he's broadly
That's okay.
isolationist.
Sure.
Alright, it's sent out. Let me know when everyone's got it. How do we set this up?
So like, you can.
You can use this stand.
Yeah, you can just take this. Or
Okay.
if you want to speak together, that's fine.
So.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm
No,
cooking,
you should put two
Oh,
together,
yeah, yeah.
otherwise it's gonna.
So. Like that. And I'll put this extra for you.
Someone just throw away my gum real quick. My bad. Answer? Chris?
I zoned out. Is it one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then aviation solid.
Yeah.
Okay.
International relations is dominated by a sexual racial economy built self-sustaining colonization requires it to be invested in order to protect itself against 2019 affecting the economy seduces into the PRC these days concerns the control of the wages on the future world the opposite should be about wages consequences costs jobs and dominant order be not freedom is based on mixed factors sexual racial economies after the after reality to general about the requires to make the world otherwise and structural more perceived than what it in general receive the black women that are receiving these being black people colonies and others to the PRC bill and produce it in the after the world order blackness representing on the horizon and theory and the one he sees a call for just transition regards colonial domination the market-based mechanisms of appliance of process of monetization the loss in socio-technical shifts of climate change that relies on geocentric concerns of climate solution nation state seeks to prioritize the neoliberal political economy relying on slavery colonization which creates externalizations of unsustainable capitalist growth that ensures zero policy failure and fabricates colonial knowledge production and 24 climate change and the base on planetary justice not one of the same debates of socio-technical easy transition for the philosophy of the privilege population transition has to be from philosophy species community transition take the notion of transition take the coloniality transportation through nation state capitalization to make impossible imagination actions of planetary justice leads to European assumptions of Western system have impacted indigenous colonies people simply presuming transition is European justice constitution regulation of racial environments and not about nature falling outside of time knowledge production and discover the coloniality notions of transition justice are discovered the racialized bodies and ecology fabricated without time without needing structural neoliberal political economy thinking on climate change fabricated some receive the market rerunning the makers of the global market with the solution of the crisis as internalization market externalities use market mechanisms the creation of new markets to solve it the crisis caused by the market system itself these keep us appearance of the global environmental racism racial motivated appropriate nature alongside the definition of any action long-term future resistance to transition and focus on the assets of absolute time temporalizing subsuming temporality transition process emphasizes a solution focusing on the state presupposing poverty or transition becomes in order to transition and places over on the racial capital circulation accumulation want to sustain and new soldiers and legitimizing the black futurity the right whole transition get a sense of higher rights and transition remains what an infinite conquest as a traction prevails projects of capital versus the PGT features required undoing familiar for certain uncertainties and there is a representation that China is dangerous in opposition to us is energy interest and not trustworthy with new energy tech on the logics of otherization and hypocrisy that creates the conditions of conflict that manifests on 914 the use and shifted to oil China focuses on owning oil these and bringing interest in the conflict the use of defined by liberal China is the opposite rhetoric and securitization and becoming in American interests such as realism to China the as implications for American interests debates where include national security economic security and national security reveals and such as beyond rules of securitization and facilities and their urgency their priority and allow no room for arguments to the contrary all objectives as the emphasis is the Chinese government until it moves into place with the Chinese government constructing into China is the other as the opposite of the US is not real cause of the threat euphemism the use of the words dual use having the sale takes place will have access to technology the United States with otherwise restrict the export for China use of the euphemism dual use allows for the threat to be represented without giving more details of the China cannot be trusted with this technology. Syria policy failure 914 securitization made cooperation possible but also impact on US China relations energy to becoming an industry strategic importance for retail security speech access through the ability to use the energy policy aspects that affect the cooperation made impossible securitization and clear policy consequences discourage cooperation liberal cooperation fails to recognize the next energy commercial acquisition moves and the non-politicized market-based issue on the international security crisis between supervised energy security is respect to be the energy and the national security framework can demonstrate the responses that are available and rendered legitimate and continuing securitization of energy is unlikely to be possible cooperation unlikely the unical case and serves to demonstrate bilateral relations demonstrate no respective directions affected and securitization had a clear impact on policy choices gas services cooperation is possible securitization and if energy is not necessity nor natural or notable securitization always a political choice making and there is some outcomes more likely impact energy policy and environment ontological critique of energy security the energy policy emphasizes the problems inherited securitizing energy showing that policy implications states and constructing threats and words to drive competition and negative impact on both environmental and human security that has a clear implications for energy policy making energy would benefit from it and being moved out of the state-centric security realm. And the one you see is the world's former hegemonic climate politics that reinsurance the capitalist social order responsibly given carbon capitalism is a form of imperialist propaganda that scares obstacles to solutions global warranty in case security zero policy faith the Kabbalah 21 policy reduce carbon hegemonic climate policy for renewable energy carbon culture hydrogen coal carbon trade carbon taxes on the capitalist a social order so by institutions hegemonic climate policy propaganda is solution to climate micromechanisms in the first nature and obstacle to carbon prices for also low weakness on work only 7 of the worst result reforestation comment construction supertourism activities on introducing bodies reforestation for creating quarters that reach short hegemonic climate policy says that capitalism refer to climate companies not responsible for the climate culture sort of responsible ideological divergence strategies individual capitalism approaches to the corporate sectors of carbon dioxide finish quality collection and capitalism ideologically dependent and you give super passengers the Pascal bond 21 the super passengers account for half the emissions in aviation 1% of the population monetary implement damage in aviation $100 billion cost received and implicit financial support of $50 billion a year hegemonic climate policy is excluded from the emission reduction mechanism 7% of the world's wealthy is responsible for 50% of total emissions of riches and people in the world 100 times higher than per capita emissions of the world that make it the half of the world's population dealing solely with emissions satisfaction covering capitalism really causes ecological and climate destruction process the capital have the authority to extract the capitalist system gives the capitalist system the motives of profit and tools and opportunities to seem to get into destruction agreeing the military is just a cover up for military to continue polluting imperialist agendas like immigration policing and prisons are all under 22 democratic voting leaning to frame and certainly Expanding military budget and language reading in the military. The military is one of the worst polluters in the world. More carbon than all but 55 countries. That's toxic about those leaders. Often essentially direct revision of it's not defenders. We don't want imperialism. Not that's towards climate action because imperialism is legally complicit in climate change. More fuel efficient, more sustainable border. Industrial complex will perpetuate the same violence against immigrants as capitalism driven. Economic crisis produces more environmental economic refugees. Efficiency gains are equally likely to incentivize more lives because of competition with Russia. Melting Arctic opens up potential for new trade routes. Military sole concern is U.S. hegemony. Red Hill is just one example. The United States only hit it in 20 million gallons of various nebulized herbicides during the Southeast Asia War, as well as Iraq. Cut the card at Iraq next. Their use of Taiwan identity under the plan sustains an anti-black mono-minority politics structurally. Now within Taiwanese people, at least 24 among Taiwanese American viewers, officials, recommendation races results about Taiwanese status, a long racial hierarchy manifests non-black sentiment, the perceptions of black people as being one being oversensitive, lazy, and violent, having multiple senses, second racial hierarchy theory, moving the non-biological and cultural racism of word within the established racial hierarchy includes media portrayal of Taiwanese people, internalized mono-minority myths of avoided, and courtesy, sexual associated with themselves, and black people they develop justifications to navigate a sense of superiority to white people, as black people who presents a race as a more vision and division. U.S. hegemony is a fundamental contradiction in 2024. 24, the U.S. had claims democracy and active observing hegemony military actions like Gaza contributions was the authenticity of the U.S. principles and violence and Harris extended Israel's military have ever ceased to know the double standards the DNC calculates as black receivers of the line and object yet and business and military support to Israel cut the card at Israel and they are a spokesperson for white supremacy as far as nine Western presidents murder facing social not generally seen for what they actually are filled with patriotic purposes and inoculated schooling more young people turn attention to the U.S. have engaged in genocide of many peoples and continue to deny and extinction discourse is violence pursues like a suffering internal monolithic associated human collectivity Douglas 21 analysis of events and disaster navigated and instances of collectivity both of racial the discussion of racism and even teleological recognition with the nether demise of subsumed blackness and collectivity no form of being in such a black suffering the recognition of racism centered by the dependencies the condition of the same and that the interdependencies is all of this together overshadows all black lives and makes it collectively structurally impossible the constitutional we form no form of violence that makes black suffering indiscriminable constitutional crime as legal access that's an accessible constitution that is subjected to aggressive violence. You want me to read it, Curtis?
Read what?
I can yes. Okay. Colonial racial capitalism is imploding through existential problem crisis. One is each traditional gate to a climate change fails, raises a single failure, gotta do an unconscious, and national feelings, social black existence, that 24, colonialism and global racial capitalism constitute racial violence, wars, schools, leads, structural and ecclesiastic climate change, racism, generator of international order, hours, and academic sovereignty, the rights of sovereignty, empirical and national the idea of the intervention of lazy conditions, once the doors, five classes, slavery, constituted, we're talking about black bodies and not bodies as the key better sons of the access to the lives, the element of judgments, where directly connect the ultimate society, so it's all the criminalization, race, sovereignty, racially constituted authority, constituted hierarchy, constitutional president, it's impossible to also to gender security, but not all it is observing. We are determining climate change, having the plan of security, the intricacies, geopolitical competition, creative representations of active people, industries, even groups, and actors, military ambitions, and cut the card there. And the alternative is demythologize whiteness by refusing the one you see by centering blackness as the forefront of the world through human transgression and challenge whiteness, security, studies, problem. That's when you demythology and whiteness, challenging epistemologies of ignorance, look at the contributions of anonymous, and the reason of blackness is starting point to the race and human and opposition, rooted in solidarity to reveal that what has been obscured would I theory be possible, absolutely research of the great powers would be the study of empires, all powers to be informed by human systems and identifying whiteness and error is necessary towards institutional change. Now go to case now one. Every one AC card is highlighted like heck. That means no one piece defense and card for each random launcher list should be sufficient to deny or turn every advantage. Cooper 24's power track is valid to know not the plan for Bell 22 gives multiple all causes that deter China, which means the plan is a key because the plan does not solve the maritime militia. Anti-imperialism is 22 and 15 Trump literally is expanding influence of the Gulf of Mexico, called it the Gulf of America, Congo, Palestine, etc. All don't China. Taiwan war not beneficial to Giza. G means the government. Roy 2024 Taiwan war legal believer. G Beijing and nowhere near superiority that will guarantee successful invasion. The U.S. and Japanese military reducing actions increase and anti-China cooperations and supply chains are stable now. U.S. and its CCS and transportation to 25. The U.S. and has supply chains to build wood and strengthen supply chains to industries and attack them. Preventive future supply chains are searching for. They have a government business manufacturing capacity. The rest supply chains are searching for where they have no coalition between economic decline and war with 20 and do not. The economic and extraordinary economic conditions of impact of war. The U.S. is reporting murders such as that. About 20 interstate wars most related to the economic such as that. About where they were predicted on 9 and the last 5 states do not suffer unless they will be able to achieve it. And never through the motivation of wars is not security, not economic gain. Economic issues are one of factor many and rarely most significant. Yeah, sure. Give me one sec.
Or if you could just say the marks, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't read the case cards after wall.
Yeah, that's good.
Well,
Just
on the K.
Yeah, I got you. So I got to the 24, the perma-crisis stuff, I stopped at interventions on Israel's military interventions. The Keynes 24 evidence, I stopped at to support Israel. And then the stuff about greening the military, that was stopped at as well as I read. Yeah, I read everything else.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Mhm.
Okay. How does Agathangelou know that IR is dominated by this sexual racial economy?
Yeah, sure. So we've made arguments about like why the United States is inherently an imperial state. Obviously, things like genocide and colonization justify the building of the United States. We think that every time the United States tries to legitimize itself, it is always rooted within a way to protect itself and the genocide, and the legacy of genocide.
The U.S. is imperialist and was implicit in slavery and colonization.
Wait, come again.
What about those things has shaped IR in a
No,
way
wait, like,
that
can you say the first part, like?
Oh, yes, I agree with your characterization. The U.S. is complicit in
Okay.
slavery and colonization. But what about those two events have made IR inevitably
Yeah. So
shaped by
we have made an argument that it's not just intrinsic to the U.S., but rather the entirety of the world is dependent on the transatlantic slave trade and the way in which those things were more formulated the modern day world we know it. Because our argument is that the propelling of nation states is only possible when we have slavery to build up empires, which we think is transnational.
Well, I guess like
not
how
just
does that
across the US.
explain conflict, for example, between China and Taiwan?
Because our argument is that the ways that the 1AC has posed itself as an incoming threat not only requires otherizing people through the anti-black logic, but also we've made a claim that.
Well, so if we
I
win
think.
that-
Wait, hold on. I think I can answer this.
Well,
like,
no,
I know
have
it.
a
Wait,
question.
hold on.
I have a
This
question
is
on the
important.
last thing that you
No,
said.
I know, but I need to
Otherizing-
answer like the last question. So, like, I know I didn't read the cards at the bottom, but like, they're pretty good. Like,
Okay,
it's basically
so,
just
yeah,
saying
you
how the
go
United
with-
States
whatever.
is complicit.
Not relevant.
For like, it
the
is
last
pretty
part,
relevant actually.
Last part
like,
about otherizing. If we win that China is actively otherizing Taiwan, why is the plan not a good intervention?
Because our
no,
argument-
because
wait.
I got this. Because
Okay.
obviously, like, the plan is just a smokescreen for anti-blackness that justifies things that, like, obviously, like,
so your
Taiwanese
answer
people
to the
like being
case is
anti-black.
just
No,
linked
our
outways.
argument is that anti-blackness.
too.
Our argument is that anti-blackness undergirds the ability for China to otherize Taiwan in the
Yeah.
first place.
Explain how China.
Because our
Believes
argument
Taiwan
is
is-
that the building of empires requires otherizing black people to create the
How is
template to
China
otherize other black
otherizing
people. Or other
blackness in the
Taiwan.
context of Taiwan?
I'm sorry?
How is China otherizing blackness in the context of Taiwan?
Our argument is that the logics of otherizing can only start with seeing black people as non-human.
Okay, but explain that contextualized to China, Taiwan.
Our argument is that the way that China has sought out imperialist power replicates the mirror effect of the
Okay.
U.S. colonizing and otherizing black people, which
Sure.
sets the template. Because the reason
But,
why
yeah,
China acts the way it does is because it wants to be like the U.S.
That's
Which means
fine.
we're winning an onslaught people claim that undergirds it. When
Douglas evidence. What about? I guess is the alternative just to reject all extinction discourses, or like are there
Well, I
instances
mean,
in which
I don't
they
think
are
that's
real?
that hard.
The Douglas evidence says that we have to start with an understanding of blackness first. Our argument isn't that all extinction rhetoric is bad. Rather, one does not start with an analysis of anti-blackness is bad
Last
because
question,
it assumes
just
black
really
people
quickly.
into otherizing weak.
The alternative is it just epistemic rejection? What does it do?
Yeah.
Okay, and how does that overcome structural?
Well, we think
integration
that you don't
dialogue?
either, because like you don't go up to like G and tell them to stop. So.
Okay. Sent 9:42.
Case just, I guess, all on one page now, and then big critique.
enough warrants. We didn't read the Cooper evidence. The Frabel evidence says deterrence works for other reasons, but our evidence says that air power is the key internally because it increases Taiwan Chinese invasion because it limits their ability to access that area. The anti-imperialism part from 2015 does not matter. It cites historical empirics like the Monroe Doctrine and preventing the axis power from expanding. In the 1940s, 2 impacts of Taiwan invasion dropped. 1. Nuclear war. Invasion guarantees escalation. Neither China lashes out due to perceived advantages of the U.S. first strikes and prevent further loss of nuclear war is certain that's quoted. 2. Erasure. Taiwanese people have consistently rated invasion as the largest fear in their hearts. Allowing that is morally bankrupt and must be rejected. That's McCoy. And the invasion is certain. Their defense is wrong. It doesn't assume our internal link. If China perceives our air power to be weak, they'll be more likely to invade because they know we can't use long-range capabilities to neutralize A2AD capabilities. Our evidence says this is a quote necessary condition to prevent inevitable invasion. That's Bremer and Bowie. Invasion is likely in this hash code. Defense from before 2025. Absolute evidence says that China has recently ramped up aggressive invasions around the island by increasing accesses and planning for invasion through surveillance. It is beneficial for the Chinese government. He has political pressure to reunify per our 2025 evidence. We've not read a supply chains. In fact, it doesn't check Taiwanese invasion. Walker 25 watch our ships is nothing good for manage Taiwan's important for the U.S. Taiwan is managed to battle. Invasion is strategic importance to give amount of looks amount of overseas dependence on Taiwan, which reduces Taiwanese leverage over the U.S. Walt does not answer the case. It's not about economic decline, but rather about deterrence collapse, encouraging Taiwanese invasion. Okay. Where the consequence of the plan against the consequence of the links, anything else is arbitrary and unpredictable, which has 3 impacts. 1. Procedural fairness, AFSCOM, prepared to defend the plan, shifting away from that allows limited prior questions that rig the game in favor of the negative. Fairness comes prior to all offenses. It explains why everything is bad and they rely on it too. 2. Clash, mooting the case, precludes in-depth testing of arguments that teach the students the skills necessary to combat material violence. This also impacts and maximizes the only external benefit to debate. 3. Erasure, mooting the case tells Connor he shouldn't be allowed to speak about the violence inflicted on his people, which internally inserts their offense. Consequentialism avoids, quote, intellectual elitism. Jarvis O. Epistemological debate, maximum elitism, to face conduct the struggle, what is opportunity to the oppressed, how does the help solve war, to the solving theories about it, to the abrogation of solving realized, the beliefs confronted what sense can this towards about a epistemology be helpful. Extinction outweighs death, irreversibly destroys the subject, produces mass suffering, and destroys all potential future value, which ends any chance of all solvency. It is the worst option for the greater good, and for humans everywhere. Permutation to both the alt-cells links are cannot overcome the status quo. Permutation, the government does the plan, and their agent does the alternative. Permutation to the plan through the mindset of the critique. It does not severance because the plain text do not commit it to epistemology. Frame the permutation through maximalism. Our 1AC initial evidence says that evaluating the 1AC through the lens of ideological purity is best. The inconceivable evidence is wrong. IR is not structured by a quote sexual, racial, affective economy. 1. Description, not prescription. 200,000 years of history demonstrates human nature is malleable, not fixed. Just because IR has been anti-black does not mean it will always be that way. 2. Totalizing. They can't explain why states of the same ethnicity and race go to conflict. Ukraine, Russia, and China, Taiwan are recent empirics that disprove their theory. 3. No universal drive. IR is a science constructed by contingent actors that make choices based on specific conditions, not overarching ontology. That's our William evidence. 1AC Mickelson says there's also no overarching logical modernity that forms the argument. Every tool used in IR can be retooled to challenge racism within the field. Some level of anarchic decision making is necessary to formulate international relations. Full blown remember 20 neorealism does not contest the state anarchy and conflict can be read as a colonial allowance production for imperialism globalization today's system structured by anarchy, which means geostrategic environment official diversity behavior new class realistic international system structured by anarchy is made through unilevel variables as last for contextualizing analysis like cultural elite perception party politics NCR analysis elite western case of great powers of democracy would also contribute to post-colonial states NCR can engage in non-western scholarship will non-western response to be knowledge about its source and knowledge will great can be open for better understanding society methodology pluralist NCR can address concern about elitism political production focus on western experience of the international elite incorporate local class production and avoids reproduction western theorizing versus one street of west to the local. The second piece of angle evidence is wrong. No link to a just transition. They need a specific critique of SAF integration, not just broad socio-technical fix of the climate. The plan is not a carbon tax that, quote, internalizes externalities. What their evidence is broadly critiquing. They consider that SAFs are broadly good for the environment. They reduce land use and encourage biodiversity. That's our 1AC Adamson evidence. Marketalism challenges slavery and colonialism. Lucy et al. Turn to liberalism and proven to work since the 18th century. Problem science institutions of economy strong pro. Black churches of abolition movement was given by free marketers like Garrison, the co-founders of the NAACP story. Miller, one of the most libertarians of other thinkers like Hurston. Schiller and Howard, you have a short right of applying restraint and pro-rap class of liberalism that makes real differences in the rise of the NAACP backs to the end of flavor libertarians a bit of the most sensitive to issues like drug war and mass incarceration crisis. The nominal evidence is wrong. It's a critique of energy security in the context of oil wars. The plan problematizes that and increases domestic production of SAFs. The premise of the advantage that reliance on international energy is bad, so the plan is the opposite of eliminating energy security. Thus, nominal evidence is wrong. China is definitively worse for the world, especially Taiwan. Their evidence omits the latter of the cases offense against the critique. Even if the U.S. is bad, it does not deny China's crime. Their treatment of Tibet, Uyghurs, and Taiwan are mirrors. No threat construction. They must win that there's zero risk to the advantage. Otherwise, deterrence is necessary to prevent invasion. The second piece of evidence is wrong. No link or turns case. Cooperation is irrelevant for our advantage since we never said warming, but we can cooperate with China in areas outside of Taiwan. It doesn't increase conflict since deterrence empirically works. That was explained above. That's the one you see. Frabel evidence. The Koban evidence is wrong. No climate politics. Their evidence does not mention sustainable aviation fuels. It mentions other types of renewables that might be bad, but it does not critique the plan. 2. The one you see preempted it and said that objectives to SAF are baseless. Extended above. They reduce land use and ensure reduced emissions and conserve biodiversity per our qualified studies. The plan penalizes their super passengers by ensuring that they have to transition to more sustainable practices so they don't have a free ticket to hurt the environment. The greening the military link is wrong. 1. Their part is not about aviation. The greening the military might be bad in the context of other parts of the military, like using renewable fuels and electrifying places like tanks, but it is not about sustainable aviation, which is uniquely good per our 1AC evidence. 2. This violence is inevitable. We are not saying that this violence is okay, just that it is not a consequence of the plan, i.e., even if there are hegemonic people in the military who gratify themselves within sexual violence, that is not okay, and that violence happens regardless of not the plan, which means we can take other actions as stop it, but now does not have to be addressed by the plan. 3, the military is good. The U.S. is decolonial, proven by the Minto Reduction, and preventing access to expansion. 4, sexual violence in the military can be checked by systems that the U.S. has, like the courts and the law. Delete evidence is wrong. Blackness is not a monolith. Progress is possible. And saying the app is irrelevant invisibilizes Black Taiwanese experiences. Lorimer, 20 Black people in Taiwan have values and stories that aren't often heard. New connections show that Black lives do matter in Taiwan. Diverse experiences are often unseen, nearly impossible to resist. They are not with the effort as not a monolith, even though there are some Black people are not all the same. Engagement with the supporting Black community in Taipei. Challenge stereotypes, increase understanding, and celebrate diversity of culture in Taiwan. These Black values can be seen in penetrable building. Community increasing awareness can create positive change. The hegemony bad argument is wrong. Interventions are irrelevant for the past. When you see evidence says that the U.S. tends towards isolationism, and the places that we have intervened were because we've overwhelming trend towards rate because we have not intervened in all the places that we could have. There are evidence about the DNC who didn't win the election. Trump is isolationist and doesn't want to expand U.S. borders because he doesn't want to get the U.S. involved in international conflict. China fills in. Their link is not unique off at Lee 23. Many focus on the U.S. war for Israel war consequences that Israel no longer continue U.S. to sustain its overall security. The countries they plan to war from U.S. made China. Those China supporters in imperialist war is no allied Palestinian true. China's immediate on the question of Moses criticized but not offer support for liberation. China's vested interest in defending Israel. The Oahu evidence is wrong. We aren't turning people into henchmen for the state. We agree that the U.S. has engaged in genocide, but the plan does not uniquely make it worse than stopping Taiwanese invasion. Prevents Taiwanese genocide, which is a unique instance in which the U.S. can be good. For all of our 1AC evidence, the Douglas evidence is wrong. No extinction discourse does not subsume Black suffering. It doesn't say that everyone's suffering is the same, but rather acknowledges that everyone has different sorrows, while preventing death is still valuable because there does exist collective value in life. Specifically, when we have evidence that Black Taiwanese people in Taiwan want the plan. No link to extinction case. We've only forwarded a minimal and non-moralized frame of extra interest. McLaughlin 24 experts become associated with mutual criticism of long-termism. I understand the risk of extinction of the human species as a minimal definition, not moralized. It describes species level. It's a source of agreement and the losses that have already been experienced by indigenous groups that these are reporting because of the content analysis of supply. My definition of those sort of risks, especially troubling and comparison to others, it might be something about the future of human species that will bear on debates about justice. The last piece of academic evidence is wrong. No link. We never run a climate impact. Even if it's true, intervention via the plan is necessary for stopping the structural inequities of colonialism and racial capitalism. 2, no impact of colonial events of the U.S. empire is anti-imperial, broadly explained above, but I'll extend the warrants of the card here. They backed the independence of Europeans and other colonies, thwarted the imperial project of Germany, Japan, and Italy, and established liberatory alliances to check back against the coercive powers in China, like China and the SAS. That's one AC done. No interventions broadly. Every negative empiric will be about the past U.S. posture. U.S. hegemony is retrenching, shying away from competent intervention. Official rhetoric has been muted, and despite intervention in Syria, we refuse to follow up future pernicious measures or prolonged efforts. Liberalism sustains global peace. Currently 20, only general alternative to liberal peace is liberal, which is not viable technical great problems in the 21st century require more liberals to dispense the light of rising authoritarianism. And about liberal peace is about making peace sustainable for unlisted commitment to how imperfect it may be. The only way to run liberal peace is for me. More dominant liberalism, peace, promoting peace, building the global south, peace, liberal peace, the dominant paradigm criticism, global peace variation rather than alternative, no realistic alternative peace building challenge today. It's not to replace peace building, reform or culture, critiques, and not pride about also secured by clear understanding what liberal peace alternatives are. Authoritarian traditional peace building reinforcement. Powers not free from influence, pronounced liberal and nationals and dead premature as the absence of about alternatives, passage and alternative peace might be worse than what we had before. Great proud positive and furthering authoritarian peace. Liberalism is redeemable. Mills 21. First, liberalism goes no way. Improve the values of themselves and attractive understand violation of liberal notes not as an choice of liberals and David, but rather corrupt from what we can the ideas, liberal values, and predict the exclusionary violence. That is, what most progressive movements of the present attack liberal notes far more reason to from the liberalism and the dominant win over radicalities rather than preach to the choir that's the main advantage of the political college and respect the order you don't have to require for them to convert legal change to be crucial for progressive reforms necessary not to black radical liberalism engage with the considerable opponents way that non-political ideology but not Republicans or no doubt about the importance of interventions and the law of liberalism not committed to a positive progressivism by racial attitudes shifted so that gives you hope to create transitional class alliance and change of positive racial changes diminish the one that applies in part of the hopelessness. In advance, the alternative fails. It cannot solve the case or the links. Voting does not challenge whiteness ingrained in structures like international relations. If they are correct that China has a black desire to invade Taiwan, then the alternative cannot overcome that. Vickers' impact turns the alternative solely focusing on epidemic disruption leaves exactly what the CCP wants if we're never able to hold them accountable for bad behavior, given focus only on scholarship, not policy. It makes challenging coloniality harder, which turns the K. Hermeneutic systemization. Academically wrong. Grade 20. A strip of cultural difference or specific groups of stereotype monolithic values evident in the works they found out by the process of MSM blockage, there's danger of essentials and through associated blockage into with a critical way of thinking for non-black people now. Universal and race related separate from full humanity.
That's the Mori 20 evidence mark.
Was that the only card mark?
That was the only card that I marked.
And then everything else was red.
I didn't read everything.
Okay, can we get kind of like a, if you send a doctor card you didn't read?
I feel like that's cross-X, but
What the fuck? Okay, sure. Can you send a doc that the stuff you didn't read?
for sure.
Okay, you're good, yeah.
Alright, are there any theoretical reasons to reject the team?
I actually don't think so.
Okay, your card about liberalism being redeemable, it's about black radical liberalism. What about the 1AC was that?
The 1AC wasn't necessarily black radical liberalism.
Okay,
We
so
think
then why do you get like
practice-
access to that piece of offense?
It's not offense, it's an answer to the K. It's
Okay,
not
then
like
why do
a
you
reason
get
to plan
access to like that piece of defense then?
Well, it's an argument that liberalism has been embraced by the black radical tradition, so therefore it is a redeemable structure that is
So
malleable.
the argument is that critiques of liberalism fail, one, because there is no relevant alternative, but it can be retooled for progressive ends demonstrated by black radical.
Okay, but like I'm talking like what about the 1AC was black radical?
Well, I think the better question is, can you give me some examples of what
Yeah.
these forms of radical liberalism look like?
The card that Avi read under the free market liberalism has a bunch of examples. Let me
So
find
can we
that
talk
card.
about them? That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
give me
well
a
actually let's talk about that. Your card is about like the what is it, the NAACP or something like that? Or
Yeah.
something? Yeah, like that card, it says like black abolitionists are good. Like which black abolitionists support like the AF? Like hegemony is good to stop Taiwan.
I think they would say that preventing Chinese invasion of Taiwan is certainly good.
You
But
really,
the other-
how do you know
but
that?
broadly
Like, it just sounds like
liberalism
you're speaking for
It's
them.
just the idea that individuals should have access, to the freedom of liberty, property, etc. So broad sweeping critiques of that, like even if it has been used to support
Okay, I guess like
genocide in the past, it's not always
which
like
black
that.
abolitionists would agree with the 1AC?
Well, like I don't know, like these people.
You don't
are
know? You read a
well,
card.
Well, these are like historical.
It talks about Frederick Douglass. You think
Yes,
Frederick Douglass?
that's what I was about to say. It's like historical figures that have supported the idea of liberalism,
But
I obviously can't speak
Racial
for conflict
revisionism.
now. But obviously, they would reject the idea that we should let Taiwan be invaded by
I
China.
don't think you get to make that assumption about
Yeah,
dead
that's
black
like
people.
I don't know, man.
Well,
That-
we also
that-
read a
that
card
just
about-
sounds-
We read a
that
piece
just
of
sounds
evidence-
like racial
we did read a
revisionism.
card about
That-
black
that-
people.
We read,
in
we read a
Taiwan.
piece of evidence
That's
about
not
black people
black-
in Taiwan,
But
which is important.
Frederick Douglass is not a black person in Taiwan.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but he would think that invasion
What?
of that state
Your evidence
would
says
reduce
don't
their
flatten
liberty and
blackness
harm
into
their
a
ability to
monolith. Like
express
you
their
just
values.
did that right now. Anyways, I'm gonna go to this like answers to Atwaro. I think they're really trash. The second one, it says that we criticize Israel. Bro, did you see like the Trump AI video? Like, be for real, man.
Yeah, that video was heinous. That
I
video
know,
was-
but like, you think the U.S. is criticizing them right now?
U.S. is not criticizing Israel
So
right
then
now.
why do you like read defense then? Like that doesn't.
What do you
make
mean?
sense.
Why do we read defense? We
Yeah,
wanna
like
have
how like
arguments
your card is
against
about how
your
like the
critique.
West
Our
is
evidence says that
criticizing
the
them
West,
and China
our
is
evidence
bad.
says that Israel has sufficient aid regardless of Western
No,
intervention
that's not
in
the
region.
argument. The argument
China,
is that
China is going to give
the
them
argument
money.
at the
Other
bottom
allies
is
are
that
gonna
the
give them
West
money.
is criticizing
They
Israel.
are
We're
a
not
rogue
doing that now.
state. They are a rogue state that is infringing on Palestinian sovereignty, regardless of whether the U.S.
Okay,
sends
how
them
does that
$300
answer
billion.
the fact that the United States like wants to go colonize Gaza right now?
That is a critique of Trump as an individual and his
I
use
don't
of
think it's a
president,
critique
not
of
the
Trump as an
system of
individual.
military.
He's the president.
Yeah.
Exactly. U.S. administrations can be flawed. That does not disprove the system of U.S. administration.
I disagree. I don't need prep, but I'm not going to take any more prep for the doc that you're supposed to send with my card. You're supposed to cross it. You said it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to take a second and prep to make it over, make sure not missing anything, and then I'll start. Okay, 9:38.
Yeah. I got it.
Uh, 9:25. There's gonna be a doc on the second here. What is this? Octas, right? It says 2AC Octosen, but y'all know it's 2NC Octosen. It's just gonna be the K.
Let's
surprised, right?
Is it
starting a framework or?
Yeah.
No, I'm doing the Agate like theory of power system at the top, and it's gonna be framework. That's probably more annoying, but
That's fine. I'm good.
okay.
Let me open the document.
Okay.
But framework is just like under the overview.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
We're good whenever.
Yes.
Okay. Hunter, Chris, EC, you all good? Thank you. Cool. International relations dominated by sexual, racial, effective economy built upon sexual colonization, which creates the extent of permanent militarization, imperialism, and climate justice, which all turns out when education fits her. Really get impact made because state-based solution to warming call to market-based back to the trigger limit in the drive to enslavement colonized, but also seeks to put the market for the environment, meet the West sees with the cart for the horse. Now, the U.S. is the West Coast colonial nation, crossing the embarrassing their evidence is about saving the Americans from Europe, which means that they're just stopping white-on-white violence in Taiwan, just find the deaths of black women in the Congo and the bombing of Palestine, which proves our theory of power about how affect control operate to racial second desire. The first argument is for description, not prescription, drop every process analysis about how the U.S. and other imperial nations must build themselves up to the logic of transatlantic slave trade with the conceded historical analysis should flow straight through, should flow through the way you think about the IR debate. The next argument is that it's totalizing. Obviously not true. We can't explain why nations go to war, i.e. our argument above about how nations only can hear themselves through the transatlantic slave trade, prove that there is an ability to enslavement colonized because they know the U.S. did that in order to gain global supremacy. Proves that other nations just model in that era. They say that cannot, there's no overarching logic we use to stop IR. The explanation I did above definitely answers it. They say IR is reflexive. I will do read the card below. They said we flatten IR. I did work above. They say Black Taiwan needs people exist. You should read the underlying part of the card that talks about the ways in which Black Taiwan people are invisibilized, which is proved by the 1AC not mentioning them. But the second that a black team said, hey, you're a racist, it's tokenizing as fuck to read the card about black people because it proves you only care insofar as you use them as fungible objects to win proofs. We're really also claim about the way they perform. They do not care about black people, which manifests not only their policy making but their research design. Now, I will go to the next argument on the line. They say Trump's isolationist. Drop every example about how Trump has threatened to do things like invade Canada, Mexico, etc., Greenland in order to colonize them as well and take them out. Proofs we have a better reading. No, every argument they make about how Trump is an individual does not assume that Trump is the fucking president, which should filter the rest of the way you think about the next card. The next argument is going to be they're not a headroom for the state, did the work above. And well, actually, they said we did not read the climate impact, but we did. That's the academic evidence drop. Means that any risk that we turn warming is an existential threat, and our internally turns will turn the case. They say liberalism is good. They're demanding to recuperate realism through real liberals, frame prescribed colonialism, and the House IR. The Egglin 24. The I are developments like labor, the realistic that the U.S. produces not about the state power and the liberals, produce knowledge about the logic of realism, really the military power, the crucial ensuring economic power in the realistic accurate points of the liberals include with colonialism, imperialism, racism, and sex, no setting opposites, the mental we need the club, the constitution of imperial colonial practices, liberal reassurance, the global colonial line, the liberal peace and democracy, and our company by value, but standing way aspirations will not be possible. We redeem liberal operation, confidence of racism, real energy to ensure global power, and the notion about retaining great power, the racial ideas, great power, the way majority states position by the less power, and those below them, and our mission of colonialism and segment and the effect of dominant power used to justify West versus and liberalism. Mills is a strong nihilist and he loses from his meaning. That's option 19. Liberal frames of racism have been limited, calculating differences in the provisions, and rather they're advocates to maintain a liberal distance, maintaining prognosis, remaining focused on security, directed to liberal exploitation, and liberal frame of peace with the new county law, which is Mills' argument, are further than the black way of application. Mills argues that appeals completely monocle and changes that black people are constantly basically from the reform the dead since blacks is not a problem. Also, independently reject the team. They cannot say that Frederick Douglass would have said that we should stop Taiwan war because he did not say that was form racial revision allows for Trump to do shit like, oh, well, MLK wasn't equality, so we should stop DEI because it fucks up white people. Is an independent reason to drop them for the racial revisions, but also indict the research projects. Now, Jarvis goes neg, also go in the Pittsburgh analysis to key, voting astronaut, pass away, and do not get access to problem solving. CSU inserts here in green. Now, IRS racist assumes they're warranted to work above. I'm not going to read the card. Now, impact framing, perm crisis, cause of extinction, dropped. Back in NG 24, she said that the drive to enslavement colonized form West security lines are seek to maintain supremacy over those who seem less than human. Anti-black and colonialism shape existential threat, i.e. the market already put the white and wealthy before black indigenous folks willing to inflation, food insecurity, geopolitical conflict, and what makes climate change worse and existential by shaping politics around the privileged interests opposed to the interests of the people. Now, go to framework. Our interpretation of the WC should be only be the research project and not going to win the hypothetical consequences of the plan test everyone. The WC is invested into ethical structures and non-production you should vote neg. Also, means do not get fiat. Now, one, fairness. It's not fucking real. And pure propaganda. There's no rumor saying that after fiat proves that infinitely regressive use as just to break down episode focus on research. Competition is good, but only as far as we operationalize it to make better research practices. Next, there's no criminal impact. People lose arguments all the time, don't need activity, but does shape the way we engage in arguments to encourage the argument environment. Now, structural fairness definitely outweighs resources, strategies, and coaches, and not necessarily material proves that no fiat is not the end in the world, but they say is the infinite power question obviously not true. If we win, those are good because you do not exclude racism from research practices, even if it's infinite power question, because our argument is that those are the ethical questions that must be answered now. They say fairness paradox, obviously not true. We know judges not adjudicate flows properly, i.e. if I read this guy versus John Catulus, he'd probably put me down without even opening the fucking document. Proves that some information is definitely true. Now they say class, our class is better, that's what you know, or I didn't read hard, but our class is definitely better because it's focused on epistemic research, but also the known evidence for their class, i.e. the video policy not to you how to get implemented, would prove that there's nothing in their model is distortable, but our class is better because we center people in this space. Now, a few standards. One, KPK debates are better. I think the debates after the station focus generates revolutionary class and balance the topic because of the round for building net benefit debates that are not set for the state aim and strategy for social change. Looks like debates over the capital establishments, we do a project, cycle debates, and turning laying back movements, and after students debates think about how we act like new worlds, and being our model is better because they put agency back into debaters. Now, fiat is works of skills, not going to read the card, I probably don't have time, but I'll do the explanation here, i.e. fiat is bad because it teaches us that we should only think and role play the state, which is obviously bad because it does not teach us how to even engage those policies, but also trades off with actual activism, i.e. putting power back into ourselves. It proves that we have a better analysis for how to engage politics in the real world. Now, really quickly, the unity loses good and encourage an argument environment in the ballot should be a referendum on research, but assessed by the teams given to more ethical research projects. So also there's gamification. This that their model debate is unexploitable. Imagine policy does not spur action, means that the model debate collapses into just a game which distorts research and ensures decisively common action, which means to try or die for KVK debate. Now, China bad reps increase violence and violence debate against Asian students. Not going to read the card, but I will do the explanation here. I'm sorry, I do not have time, but I'll do the explanation, i.e. the way that we can demonize Chinese people in this space, or i.e. demonize China as a nation state. It will allow for white liberals and white racists to latch onto the idea that, well, China is evil, so we need to demonize and kill people who are Chinese in the state, which is proven by the COVID-19 pandemic, which proves that the research model creates a hate crime. Now, the alternative is to demythalize what is this by century, like in the form of security studies, due to human suspicion. It's not white witness within security studies, that's safer evidence. 10% that demythalizing whiteness challenges epistemologies of ignorance. It means that we have a recent blackness in all our security studies in order to make change. The alternative solves the case and result in epistemic research that challenges the state and leads to grassroots movement for the framework evidence. The framework arguments to prove that we can call for the abolition of things like anti-blackness, prisons, police, etc., which all solve the case through research practices in this space to prove that we definitely do solve the gap. They say this does not hold. They say that the alternative does not solve. Obviously not true because obviously not true because we made a debate about research. They say epistemic structure does not hold the CCP accountable. You should think about it. What about voting for Michigan stops the fucking CPP? Our argument is that they link back to this more and the core cause for core optimism because obviously they're not passing the plan to hold CCP accountable because the CCP is not here now. I will do extinction out ways first. They said Douglas, the way to attempt to universalization is an attempt to assume black suffering into the system, but we rather than mass experience anti-blackness. Their mathematical equation sucks. Because our argument is that the way they have to prioritize black extinction over black people always means that black people will be put at the bottom. All their arguments about Taiwan people wanting to plan opposite not true because the explanation is about how they only use black people, Taiwanese people insofar as that they can battle off them. But our other argument as well is that their card literally says that Taiwanese people in Taiwan are papered over and seen as invisible to prove that they do not solve the racial power relations because it proves the ability to enslave. Now, the next link I'm going to go for is the transition link. It said Act of 24, the one C gesture. A green transition is activated environmental racism every term which describes colonial knowledge production. The idea of a just transition to SAM will emphasize the speed and time of justification rather codes not fitting the white future, which always are black. The plan of green militarists not only sets up the frontier for violence at home, but also abroad. Green effort teams we use to perfect militarism in places like Africa through AFRICOM. They will be sold to Israel to bomb Palestinians with U.S. blood money. It will be test on the land of indigenous people in the U.S. and more than just find an ethnic cleansing of non-white population. Those in the Congo and on indigenous land see a savage, not utopian enough word statement proves that it links to the techno-scientific framing just that was above. Now, really quickly, they said the plan is not a carbon tax. Whoops, we will win that it is below. The next argument that the market is liberal town colonialism. It's solved by its answer about argument I read above. The Fred Doug example I did, they say the card's not about aviation. We'll do that later. Say why is this inevitable and not about the plan? Obviously, we won an on-topic claim about how investments in the military always result in more sexualized, gendered, racial colonial violence. Proves that even if it is inevitable, it is bolstered by making the military, quote, stronger and faster, which is when you see evidence. Next argument is that the military is guilt of sexual violence is inevitable. Did the work above. Now, I'm going to do the racialized security link. Extended I'm in the way to attempt to contain challenge through anti-war asserts. The intensification of conflict through the fear of racialized other. This link is part excellent when we see and Tracy draw on examples of difference between the U.S. and China, but fail to explain that they are both equally complicit in colonial imperial structures. Not because of the securitization of energy is not necessity or natural inevitable, because securitization is always a political choice, proving that the Chinese response to energy securitization is reactive to U.S. policy making, not the other way around, because it means that both countries will just racist hegemony, based in colonization and slavery, and will do everything they can to push U.S. over the top, even if it results in military conflict. Now, they say it's about oil wars, obviously not true. It's about energy securitization broadly, means it still links, which proves that it doesn't solve. The next argument is that U.S. is bad, does not justify China. Obviously, does not justify your shit about the U.S. being decolonial because all your examples are ass. And they say we can cooperate with China outside Taiwan. The cooperation will be investing in U.S. colonial genocide in Congo, which is proof by how they're both trying to colonize Africa right now. You have to read one thing.
It's fine. You good for crosswalk?
Yeah.
Okay, framework. How do you know that the research project predict the 1AC is bad, absent evaluating the consequences of that research?
It depends on the way you presented the research. So it's not necessarily about the consequences, but your justification behind it.
Okay, but I don't understand how you determine that Joe's justifications would lead to bad things, absent understanding the consequences of those representations.
Well, our argument is that the way you focus on consequences assumes that we should do things only for the consequence of solving for a larger existential impact.
No, but
right?
my argument is that your model also relies on consequentialism because you need to evaluate
Well,
the
we don't
consequences
evaluate
of
on
those
consequences
representations.
based off of i.e. like here's why the plan results in X. Like we think we can independently win off you presented a research project that justifies certain things that we have said are anti-black and bad. The reason, like the issue with this argument is like even if that's true, the way that you evaluate consequences will always be through extinction at Wade, which you think is racist and violent, and that's the way that we can
But our
focus on
framework
epistemic
interpretation
research.
is not you don't get your K. Our framework interpretation is you get to weigh the consequences of your stuff against the consequences of our stuff.
Well,
I don't
our-
understand why that is a non-arbitrary way. You get to weigh your offense against what we've predictably
It's
introduced
like
as
our
our
argument is that epistemic shifts and epistemology is what structures our consequences, right? So you can't just say,
Okay, but-
oh, weigh the consequences first because we have made
We've
arguments
not
about
said
why your
weigh consequences
representation
first. We've
and
said
underlying
consequences
epistemological
against
assumptions come
consequences.
first.
I want to ask about your theory of international relations. How does it explain why China wants to invade Taiwan?
This is the first process. You want to do this
Yes.
over again?
I would
Sure.
like you to re-explain it in the context
Sure.
of the
So our argument is that China mirrors the way in which the U.S. acts, i.e. it sees that the U.S. is a global superpower and wants to mirror those things. Our argument is that that's only possible because the U.S. gained superpowers or gained the hold on the
I'm asking
industrial
you to
order.
explain why they want to invade Taiwan, not why they desire to
Yeah, so I'm getting there. I have to explain because you think that security studies are just one all be all. It requires explanation. If you want to know the answer, you have to listen to me. So do you want to listen or not?
I'd rather listen.
Okay, cool. So stop interrupting me. Our argument is that the ways that the 1AC or the way that China industrializes itself, i.e. seeks to create power, is in reflection to the U.S. Our argument is that reflection is only possible by the U.S. enslaving and colonizing others, which is action that China uptakes in order to match the
How
U.S.
do your authors know that that's the way China acts?
Because that is a historical analysis that proves that
What
like
historical
it's true.
trends prove your theory of international relations?
Because it proves that there is a structuring logic that has integrated or
No,
created the
you said
international
history.
order.
What historical example do you have of China mirroring the way that U.S. desires power?
Every example about how the U.S. has ostracized black people has
Give
been
me an
replicated
example.
in the
Well,
United
actually,
States.
we would make arguments that the U.S. puts pressure onto China to do those things.
Give
That
me
is
an
neither-
example.
that-
Give me
okay,
a historical
yeah, all right.
example.
Let's give like a couple historical examples. I'm gonna light them up in the 1AR, but like this O'Connell and the Spark 21 evidence that's in the 1NC
Didn't read
talks
it.
about. Yeah, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna read it in the 1AR. Anyways, like there are multiple fucking like examples here that proves.
I've
that the
asked for an
United States is
example for
complicit.
about 30 seconds now, and you've not given me examples
Just
of
read the
where
example from
China
the
wants
line.
to invade Taiwan because of U.S. aggression in the region. How do you know that we want to read Taiwan apps to win to get the ballot? We've read this app, lost
What?
before.
What, the Tracy said that you only read Taiwan. We didn't say you only read Taiwan after the ballot. We said you only talk about black Taiwan people who get the ballot. Interesting? I do think it's interesting.
No, I said untrue.
Oh, well, that's obviously true. Okay, Daniel's going to finish up where I left off, and then going to do some other case stuff.
I'm gonna send it out right now. It's just the K and the case.
He's gonna be hooping on like the side bench, just laptop up in GM, like NBA 2K.
NIL shit, I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, he's just paying students.
Wait, actually, really quick, what we have, 9:25?
Yeah.
9:25, sorry, now.
Oh wait, hold on.
9:10.
Is it still just K in that case?
Yeah.
Give me a second. Let me just type this. It's
Yeah.
I get confused. Everyone's saying double stops.
My bad.
Close your eye.
Man, when I was being in that was the best shit. I like undered out all my friends for like oh yeah, they hated their life. They're forming.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I know, just for my head.
Here you go. How about I cue you? Is that fine? I'm just gonna cue you. It's a little cringe. No, it's not. What? Can you just listen to me?
Okay, everyone got the order, right?
In case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna start on the link and then I'll go to the perm in case.
We're ready.
Extend the hegemonic climate politics link. The one sees attempt to ramp up production of SAFs as a form of greenwashing propaganda that provides a false solution to climate change that speeds up warming by giving a superpass which turns the key sustainable aviation fuels, or the ultimate form of greenwashing propaganda by the aviation industry, the ones that they have defended are carbon intensive, undefinable, require fossil fuels, and are terminally misleading that turns case ensures ecological collapse and creates zero policy for the colonists. In all 24 SAFs have been presented to decarbonizing aviation. They are largely the so far false solution. Urgent changes in this area SAFs to be a solution to climate crisis. There is no definition of not all fuels are equal and zero. So climate discourse does not mean that airlines will reduce emissions, but offset them from the atmosphere. S-100 flew from the Heathrow to JFK using 100% SAFs. Virgin Atlantic confirmed that once CO2 emissions were identical to the flight used fossil fuels. Flight VS-100 was made by Rolls-Royce. Trade-offs with reforestation and running food. Flight VS-100 was the one of lost in the smoke screen of a heart. Convincing the public they can fly without environmental change. SAF can be misleading as a result. There is a wide variety of fuels that fall under the umbrella. There is a true impact varies by feedstock used to produce fuel. Majority of SAFs are produced by the biogenic sources. Biofuels are combined with fossil fuels reduction. The reduction scenarios fail land use to eliminate forests as carbon sequestration trade-off. Trade-off has obvious harms. Jet fuels biomass require the UK to give up 50% of backlands to sustain the current 5 passenger levels. SAF upgraded ways are not sustainable. SAF ways is not household charge, but animal feces. Feedstocks have serious implications with the climate crisis. Incentivizing industrial action encourages expansion responsible. Over time, instead of emissions factors not added or renewable fat waste used in pet food, and that's the most likely to substitute is palm oil. The deforestation means animal fat waste and SAF results in greater indirect carbon emissions. Green hydrogen still take energy producers opportunity cost resource could decarbonize on more essential sectors such as preservation of reforestation of forests, burning any fuel emits pollutant greenhouse gases such as have effects on health. The EPA approved plants to produce fuel as well made from plastic waste. The EPA determines how toxic it leads to cancer when 1 out of 4 people exposed to it refinery located in communities of black and low-income people. The SAF produces engaging in lobbying companies. SAFs are being used to market employee corporations. That seems to support SAF tax credits while advocating the weekend SAF standards. Includes member reports efforts by ethical lobby and major U.S. airlines to lose SAF standards efforts and leads to SAFs rights from corn and higher emissions. Aviation industry's funds advice skepticism claim that private aviation undermines parents companies reap profits by misleading consumers. Holy shit, this card is wrong. You want to read it? Okay, SAF greenwashing lead to advantages of advancements claim passengers would be applying more sustainability in marketing. What's misleading and cannot be backed by the company's actions. The aviation industry is what the leaders of competition and sustainability to make money, and companies are reluctant to invest is not really serious about climate commitments. Instead of lobbying for governmental subsidies, state intervention would be necessary to bring about economies to scale without risking capital scaling of the SAF production of my climate goals. Land need a biomass destroyer reforestation efforts to SAF production emit dioxide through burning of non-plant material carbon removal. Other lack of large scale SAF production may actually contribute ecological loss rather than occurrence. No matter how much aviation tries to greenwash the skies, we cannot fly over out of the climate crisis. Holy fuck, that was okay. Anyways, yeah, perfect. Wait, real quick though. That's like Starbucks right there. They support like genocide. Hella bad. Or McDonald's. I don't know what the fuck that is, but they support genocide. Anyways, reject the team. Perms. 1, all links are disadvantages to the permutation, which means that if we want to link, you should evaluate it as offense against him. 2, we have said that reject the app that means the permutation is separate. Is voter reason to reject the team and creates app shifting as a loss for infinite app conduct puts the block massively behind creating a labor debates, which all ruins nuance plan show the links to their framework offense, which means that you can't do it through the lens of the all because they advocate for hegemony. And 3, if you don't know how you can reject the one you see in affirmative, you should be skeptical of the perm reject the new one AR per articulation of the potato. The main new perm arguments is to vote for service which ended above MS and reject the perm altogether and don't frame it through maximalism. We have made arguments about why underlying epistemological assumptions come first. Now I'm going to skip the Grimes evidence. Well, 1, atmosphere towards this at the perm is an example of forcification that vigorously controls the alternative leaning planetary justice from the sense of democracy ruins the alternative revolutionary potential to collude with the imperial world order. Attention 24 just depends on the atmosphere forces of democracy, manufacturing interests, allocating globalization versus the planetary justice, imperial powers, linear justice, model justifying world conquest as a sort of project, containing the logical criticism of justice relies on single time abuse of variety of timeless use, interrelated terms of warring the great transition depends on human as a supreme agent of politics, around this approach requires there to be uniform to fit in the lower racial chronology, the chronology building, those who follow the reviews of particular orientation, representation of the capture and opening the black Oscar planetary transfers to be glued with them. Now go to case now will extend. Roy, there's no benefit for Xi to do it because he knows he would just lose to Japan and the US, which means there's no impact to China war. Drop that status quo solved now, which means she'll lower the threshold for you to vote on the wrestlings on the cage. Drop that there are all causes for the evidence because it says things like the maritime war, which isn't solved by the app, which means it gets circumvented by other motivations or evidence is wrong. Semiconductors are needed now. No reduce as dependence because they still need to make the technology and walker who sees the planet and justifies extractivism. Intern is yellow, and I'm going to read the last two cards of the one to see because they're really fire. Drop one impaired, you lose sustaining. The US letter order makes all the inevitable impairs as far as 21 mark of the conferences you trying to use over Taiwan escalated the Taiwan trade context and US imperialism back in executors in Taiwan is 1918 in the UN or true represented in China 1970 against the US sorry US imperialism because Taiwan US imperialism maintain the Taiwan relations act of 1979 for Germany because emergency arms from the US China Taiwan under Chinese cultural transfer the bourgeoisie democracy DPP historical and Taiwanese nationalism separatist accelerating such as between US and China the DPP and permanent economy US imperialism influence the US maneuver in more subtle ways having one in 2016 diplomatic sides trying to be reverse escalating Taiwan war top military opportunity particularly trying to coordinate later between Taiwanese and American official side for Laval and visit Taiwan and goals since the Biden president signed the US imperialism now fondness for Taiwan and the Taiwan microchips the US can develop significant to it and insignificant lies in the testing and training US cannot actually engage ambiguity assertion his gave power scales and more empirics are evidence is really fire O'Connell 23 signing one visited Guatemala is Belize two allies two officials outside in the US and reasoning conflict over Taiwan and China US imperialism supported diplomatic and leading to Western imperialism and Taiwanese policies as basis are China public US imperialism under brand one China policy fostering and Taiwanese ruling class war agenda and signing one GPP elected in 2016 first on KGB and KMT majority since 1949 economic sanctions on Taiwan. Now I'm gonna cut the card there, but do the line by line. They said anti-imperialism, no. Trump is our president. Drop the example of the Gulf of America, and they said nuclear war, no. You caused it. That was above. They said erasing is morally bad for Connor. No, they obviously make it worse because affirming the United States will definitely be worse for Connor. That was our evidence, and at worst, it's a gross form of identity politics that justifies anti-blackness. They said invasion now, no. All causes that was done above. They said semiconductors also done above, and no. China war 2024. G has to be domestic China's economy, reliance exports and investment. Cut the card at investment for the Roy evidence.
Investment?
Yeah.
942. 316.
Are there a card? Is there a card? No. Okay.
It's just the case and then the K straight down.
Straight down. Love it.
So like theory of power stuff. Everyone good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Taiwan invasion outweighs one nuclear war conceded that invasion sparks heat for that escalation that almost nuclear power second erasure. Taiwanese people in Taiwan have that as the biggest threat to their security and the biggest fear in their hearts. Spreading is a moral imperative. Yes, incentive for Xi to invade. Our evidence says that there is domestic political pressure because he promised to invade. Status quo doesn't solve air power. Is key to reducing Chinese access to the areas around Taiwan. Travel flows after time is important and strong now, but air power is key. 86% is key, which is above. The U.S. had ordered to make conflict inevitable because China is revisionist. One imperialist student worth crackdown. Taiwan straight missile crisis violating the rules of global governance. Their empirics don't assume recent developments like China. Increasing missile capacity for no reason. Answers sparse and O'Connell evidence. There might be empirics about how the U.S. infringes on China, but does not cause the fact that invasion is likely now for domestic instability reasons. Telling Connor that affirming myself that affirming the USFG is more racist terms of their office, which will be impacted our framework. He cannot know what I want in the context of Taiwanese sovereignty. Yes, China war. Semiconductors don't check back because the U.S. is dependent on the many wars. So conflict escalation is inevitable. Their link require consequences, which will be impacted off the critique. At the top, liberalism is good. Impact turns out eventually, even if imperfect, it's better for anti-colonial organizing. It's made peace sustainable and friended illiberal authoritarians, which is more racist. The problem with peace building is that the problems with peace building now are reasons why reform is necessary, not just critique as country. It can be retold for black radical liberalism that creates positive radical change, which is the Mills evidence. And Fangel's theory is also oversimplified, reducing IR to stereotypes of black or white. IR precludes effective understanding and makes a resistance work, which is a drop. Murray evidence that Avi read at the bottom that the black totally mishandled, but it's also a description, not prescription. They cannot explain why China wants to go to war in the context of Taiwanese invasion. So that obviously is a terminal defense to all of their stuff. Slavery cannot explain China invading, which is the stuff I just said above. Now, inserted the relevant lines first about invisibilizing. Sorry, I'll send this out after, but the part about the card about black people liking Taiwan is clearly out. It says that black people also don't understand specific nuances of black Taiwanese people, and we need to not invisibilize, i.e. recognizing it through the 1EC. We never tokenize or invisibilize. The 1EC said existential for all of Taiwan. That's obviously inclusive of black Taiwanese people, which means that it's a conceded impact, which obviously is okay. The Trump threatening to invade is a symptom, not a reason all U.S. sanctions bad. It's not a filter for our cards because it's about Taiwan intervention alone. No turns warming. And the answer never said extinction, but when you views SES better for the environment answers it. This thing about liberalism bad is the context of realism, not the theory. We have defended but proves our malleability arguments, which is an answer to the Act 24 card that they read. Now, we did not misread Mills. He published an article in 21 which quotes their article saying that liberalism can be redeemable. They're cutting his liberalism bad in some instances, but still concludes that we should make it better. It's also not specific to neoclassical realism in the context of liberalism, so it doesn't answer our scenarios about NCR, which is the card of the 20C. Don't protect the team for Douglas or MLK stuff. We obviously don't know what they would want, but the fact that they've supported liberal ideology in the past demonstrates that they would probably support Taiwanese independent sovereignty because that appeals to the values and the core of liberalism. Now, the white security logic is wrong. Cannot explain Chinese behavior done above. Framework, weigh the consequences of the plan against the consequences of the links. We're going for class. Resolution, only represents after the plan is a good idea. Anything else is not predictable. Focus the attack. To up to area gaps not prepared for. They dropped a link to the model. You link, you lose. Is extremely intellectual elitism. They erase the opportunity cost versus advocacy on the debate to choose between imperfect options, which freezes organizing and turns their critique. They obviously don't solve any of KVK. They absolutely have to be topical under interpretations. So they don't get any revolutionary offense, but their links still require consequences. The long card that Daniel read was a consequence about the plan, i.e. that SAS are bad and greenwash. We said you default to our framework because they obviously care about the ass consequences, and we obviously get fiat, otherwise it demobilizes their politics. Yes, fiat is good, that was done above. It's good for Taiwanese people specifically because the refusal to engage in in-depth discussions of Chinese violence in Taiwan is an active disavowal of Taiwanese people calling for engagement of the plan, so they cannot tell me what is good for my sovereignty. Now, not going for fairness, so it's irrelevant. If prior questions destroys KVK debate, so that's an impact to the model. We saw clash done above. We are better for revolutionary clash because KVK discourages the hedge case, which is that they never learn about the industrial military complex and anything else. So we're better for revolutionary clash. Engaging state is inevitable, so learning about the strategies here in debate is necessary. So it's another impact to the KVK. Fiat good for skills tailored to advocacy. It doesn't trade off with real activism. They don't read cards, so you should strike it. You link, you lose. Impact turned above. People always quit before applying it materially. They said violence happens on a material scale, so we must have strategies that operate on that same level. The plan is not used for white liberals to justify killing Chinese people. It's good for Taiwanese sovereignty, and that alone, and even if there are some negative consequences, they've conceded the cultural genocide part of Taiwanese invasion. So that obviously outweighs every single link that they have gone for. The alternative cannot solve the case. research alone is bad, the bigger science impact turns it. You cannot solve the case through research, that makes no sense, because they cannot abolish Chinese behavior or stop invasion, or else the permutation obviously solved. Fiat cannot solve. Yes, fiat not real, but advocacy and policy is liberty for Taiwanese people, which is the fiat good stuff I did above. Natural optimism is good for me in this debate. And you cannot get to determine what is and isn't optimism for Taiwanese people. It clashes key to skills that could translate to advocacy policies. So there's no cruel optimism. The distinction affects black people too, so obviously it doesn't deprioritize them. Black people are not at the bottom, but to the extent that's true, the perm is solvent. And the plan is good for black Taiwanese people, which is done above. Taiwanese people don't want the plan answered above. It's quite literally the biggest fear in their hearts, which is a direct quote from 1AC Buckley. You don't speak for Taiwanese people. It's just a voting issue about how unification risks are always downplayed because there's always one probable U.S. hedge. But if U.S. hedge is good in this one instance, you should evaluate that alone and not the broader baggage associated with. There's no transition link. We said the SAs are inevitable, so they lack uniqueness. No reason why the plan is bad regardless. No link since markets can't be liberatory, which is Tuesday Klutsky. They supported liberalism and free market ideology, which is aligned with black radical liberalism, and it gives individual freedom and autonomy. Ontology does not overdetermine the military to give it a defense. IR stuff and about how Agatha was just flat out wrong about sexual, racial, affective economy. No racialized security link. China and U.S. both complicit is the reason why U.S. intervention in this instance is bad, which is done above. There's no self-fulfilling prophecy or raise the head for case and deterrence working, which they have not answered. Cooperation is what Nyman's calls for, so the stuff about Congo doesn't deterrence case argument, doesn't justify Congo mining, no evidence supports that in the first place. No hedge, climate politics link, not greenwashing since they conceded. SAFs are good. The emissions negative technologies and necessarily better for the environment, which is Adam said. They also reduce land use, which is necessarily better, and encourage things like regenerative agriculture, which are all in line with what they want, which cite studies from the USDA and EPA, so you prefer authoritative scientific sources. But the plan makes good SAS. The reason they're bad now is because there's no profit incentive to create the best solutions, but the plan balances market supply and demand, which makes it better. Don't reject the team for Starbucks. What the fuck? It's McDonald's first, but also our coaches got it, so you should reject AK, not us, not severance. Permutation, do both. It's not severance because it does both actions. Don't be skeptical of the permutation just because of the hegemony. If we win, stopping Taiwan aviation is good. The use of hegemony is justified, but the stuff about voting issue for Starbucks, whatever, is the reason why KVK is bad, because it doesn't focus on the nuances of policy, which means that it demobilizes and worsens revolutionary clash because they're focused on epistemological indicts, and one flaw is sufficient to vote neg, which is worse for organizing. There's no forced suffocation or atmospheric force being. We can incorporate the plan and broader critiques of scientific blackness. If we win link defense above, it's also not okay of realism, not neoclassical realism, and they have not actually read a plan that Taiwanese black people rejected, or that broadly black people would dislike stopping invasion because it's aligned with liberal values that they conceded are good.
It's 19.
Yeah, I did. 19.
Yeah, I'm gonna. No, you said AT realized the part that I was inserting for reference I just sent, but it's the same card.
Can you look at it?
Yeah, I get you. I sent you this stuff.
That's fine. Really quickly, what are like the answers to the permutation?
I said not severance because it does both. Don't be typical of the perm just because a hedge. When stopping Taiwan invasion, the use of hedge is justified. No force suffocation. It can incorporate the plan and our critiques of century blackness, like defense, but it's also a critique of realism and not neoclassical realism.
Yeah, let me send you the drawing.
Is that for what?
I'm sending you the
For what?
Yeah.
just the first steps. Yeah.
I got 30 seconds.
You're fine. And that's
said there's only like 2?
Yeah, they're both at the Casper Hospital. One goes up and one goes down.
You like in like the entire lab.
Entire state, there's 2 escalators and 1 elevator.
I'm gonna have to fact check that. I feel
No,
dumb.
seriously, it was like, you know, I was like, dude, this is like elementary school. It is. I bet. I have a birth certificate to say that's
It's a critique of the case. Also, was the truancy okay to hear?
Yeah, I think at the beginning when you had it fully
But
covered.
then
if you
like,
want to
people
go
again,
over-
okay.
Yeah, you just hard to fix out behind.
You're good, you're good.
Oh, they're wide.
Yeah.
I'm not like trying to.
It's like, okay, sure, why the hell not?
Like, you can take a picture if you want to like send it over. No? No? Okay, that's fine. Okay, we all good?
Yeah.
You're going to vote negative for directed aspects of sexual racial equality built upon anti-blackness colonization because we have one that the drive to the slave and call that through unethical research practices called the slavery, which makes extinction happen, ensures extension warming, and causes the fight for humanity, which turns case to uphold the unethical world to perm crisis that causes extinction, which is a drop war. The one is desperate attempt to defeat China to ensure U.S. hegemony. You are believe that of the murderous patriot subject with the Utah evidence that always seeks to help the U.S. in the fight for power, which requires paving a bloody path to get there, i.e. killing and genociding black people in the Congo and indigenous people, all ensuring extension warming. Now, any risk we wanted the SAF production through the way is unsustainable, not only only any risk we want the SAF production unsustainable turns the for every level because then when the event requires the money to plan make the military green and more sustainable, but we're also really a warming impact that is essential for the academic evidence be that we win the case when you vote negative because we have zero the app. Any risk that they make warming more likely means it causes self-fulfilling prophecy with warming. Now, it seems that way as we're dog shit. Except dog. Once you have universalization bad because as soon as black suffering into a we that makes slavery colonization like a clean enemy tradition and colonialist military justifiable, which is unethical. It should flip impact conflict because they force black people to die in order to maintain white security for everybody else. We will win that the plan caused extinction well, which proves we will go from link to one later. The first argument in the line is liberalism good. One dropped the Tennessee Act and evidence says that liberals are just as complaint with slavery colonization. This is the same rhetoric that Democrats use to say, well, Kamala is not as bad as Trump, but then Kamala was pro-Israel, pro-colonization, which prove how liberals always reinforce racial economy through a sensitized face. Next argument is that black liberals are good. They said the theory of black liberals is good, but the argument they do answer above they could prove they just brought black people to the nation state, but also they're not giving you any example of black liberalism, which prove they're just hooking on these black people, which still reads protect the team for talking for the dead black people who are not here. Also, Taiwan liberalism is not black liberalism because at the end of the day, even Taiwan gained independence from China, Taiwan people will still go black people started to prove that they're the affect economy built on slavery colonization. The next argument is that we dropped Murray. This is wrong. Drop that China mirrored the U.S., i.e. China wants to be stronger than the U.S. to copy this wave, i.e. China engaging in slavery in the Congo, doing blackface and actively racist prove that description does come before prescription. Next argument is that black people are not understand civic as Taiwan people. Even if black Taiwanese people are threatened by China, they are also threatened by non-black Taiwan people. We prove that's not offense, but they also dropped the Chinese mission or shaped by anti-blackness spread as well. Next argument is that Trump invading the system. Trump is not just a system, but it is indicative of a colonial system built upon slavery colonization because Trump is obviously in the long line of presidents who are racist like Andrew Jackson, but also liberal racist presidents like Obama and Biden would prove they have just called on black people to suffer, but also any risk that the examples about Sudan, the Congo, etc. all prove that Trump definitely is racist and is a system of large colonial structure because in order to justify things like Greenland invasion, China, Canada invasion, and Mexico invasion, US justify US as a nation state. They say no turn warming. Our card says existential threats, conceded, red no warming defense means that we definitely turn the case, but also it's an external impact that proves that if we win any case defense, we can instantly vote on warming cause extinction. Next argument that Mills, creating liberalism, I did the work above. They say Douglas for sovereignty don't have to win that argument because the Mills argument answers. They say US intervention could be good, dropping them like Palestine and Congo, etc. We prove that they are colonialists, but also the card about white on white violence, which they drop. Now they say coaches got his food and turns KPK debate. This is a racial microaggression that we reject the team. It's the same party that white players use to demonize people like Wake RT by saying that debates are just ad-hoc under the model, not actual debating, which justify black criminality, but also turn their framework arguments to prove no permutation because not indebted to rejecting the anti-black paradigm. Now, our interpretation of the policy should only be used in research, probably not the way to have the consequences of the plan, but even if you grant them framework, we have a link that turns the case to prove that even if we don't win the firm property, you can vote on the link. Now, I said our standards, KPK debates are better, debate absence, station and focus are good because they actually put them all to growth debates that actually debates possibility with theorize what they ought to be as opposed to what it is now, means that we reject anti-blackness with your battle, which they can see the battle parts of the argument, even if they don't go for fairness proper, but also secondly radical exploitability that's been embedded, we just dropped. They dropped that debate under our model better because they engage strategy for social change outside state-based focus. So drop that looks like debates that explore strategy to mutual aid, led moving other organized grassroots movement that puts AT back in debaters as opposed to state. Also, does not have a good answer to Fiat bad. Fiat is back to this debated by assuming that we can imagine our way out of lines, which is proven by Congress about thinking that debating about the policy can somehow get it actually passed. We proved it turns psychic violence and guaranteed pacification rap activists as opposed to what they get to do decide to say. Now, class, drop our class better to KPK debate to ask the state. Also, if they prep solve all your offense, it makes you better to prepare your representation by 14 policy escapes about your scholarship. Also, our model creates explore debated, which their model does not. Yeah, let's say you lose this back, so they call it elitism and free organizing. Drop that, nothing about the voting for this app, we're talking about this app, generation activism, proof they cannot solve. They say fiat is good for power people, i.e. Connor, I did the work above. With the answer, they say power questions are bad, that people leave debate, drop that, there's no impact for the fairness page. Now, bottom level, even if you don't win framework, you should, if you win framework, you should move the app, that's good plan focus, but if we don't win it, if that doesn't matter, because we're admitting a massive case for the app. Now, the permutation proper, 1, always disadvantage the permutation means we win, and you should evaluate the offset against it, but also drop logic. We've said to reject the one they see. If you not write an RP side saying how you can affirm Michigan and reject them, you should strike permutation, but also drop vagueness. You not know how or how you can reject the one they see and affirm it, you schedule the permutation, rejecting short articulation, but also it's not explaining the difference between NCR and realism. All the academic parts still apply as a student evidence, but also drop the more into the atmosphere for success. The permutation is an example of self-replication that purposely joins the alternative to dealing planetary jets. They say hedge is good in this instance. Prove no permutation. We've said hedge is bad in all instances, and saying that hedge is good this one time justifies hedge in every other scenario. Because you just say, well, hedge is good this one time, so we keep doing reading trenches, cooling violence. Now, the link. I'm going to go for the headline Klein policy thing. Daniel read a long ass bullet in our card for a reason. It's because the headline Klein policy is the nail in the coffin for Michigan. You should extend it here. In the case of the Japanese that would say increase emissions at any level, they go to war in China and cause excess warming through anti-black logic, and at the end of the plan, the one she intends to ramp up the production of SKF before greenwashing propaganda that turns the case and tries to false solution to climate change. The call evidence of that card debate should be after around, so the SKFs are a dubious solution to climate change. Net zero discourse in the content of SKFs are just marketing employed. The card example, since the VS100 used 100% ACF that proves just as much emissions of fossil fuel and how the regimen or Rolls Royce proves that in Turns case because the US would just send out new jets with new fuel covered in black brown royal blood, all causing nuclear war. China ensures extra warming, which causes extinction means to have an extra impact to warming, and it means that in terms of only event to read the car, it says that this is smoke the car, there's no harm they can do to without environmental damage. It's fine proves that the car is nailed in the coffin, and they now have to get answer to an all car better. Now the alternative, really quickly, is to reject the one you see. If human experience solves the case that acts as the counterplan that rejects the SAF, because we said that causes mass warming, makes complex to mean that any written recurring violence means useful negative rejecting messages that make their impact inevitable.
Taiwan invasion has two effects that have been conceded throughout the entirety of the debate. One, erasure. We've been explicit to the place you must start the debate is who solves Taiwan invasion better. It is an ethical imperative because it, quote, strikes fear in the hearts of Taiwanese people, and it is an ongoing genocide that would kill millions and ensure that an entire culture and civilization is wiped off the map. That must be rejected in every instance and come before your determination of warming, because it is a cultural genocide impact that they've said is important. Two, nuclear war. We have an external war impact that has been dropped as well. They've conceded that invasion causes tip for that escalation that sparks nuclear conflict and kills billions. It comes before the warming impact because we have defense to their internal into extinction, but they have no defense to our scenario to act as an independent Taiwan invasion impact. They've conceded the framework double turn that was done on the case and implicates the argument that they've had on the case. They accused us of knowing what black people want, but they doing the exact same thing when they assert that counter-defending the state would be worse for him, which was that their model of framework just gestures back into all of their offense, and it cannot solve any of their arguments. The K, I'll go there now. I'll answer the top of the 2R about their model of international relations. It cannot solve the case. It cannot explain why China wants to invade Taiwan, so they do not have access to our Taiwan impact because China is revisionist. Our evidence says that there are empirical examples of China lash out at the U.S.-led ruler for reasons other than U.S. infringement. The June 4th silencing of protests, and the Taiwan missile state crisis where China conducted missile tests around Taiwan to show their power. Their examples are wrong. One, they're too old. We have evidence from 2025 that says China has been increasing aggressive military drills around Taiwan. They've increased the quantity and scope of their military drills and are, quote, rehearsing for invasion. Do not do work for them by reading their cards. They might be right that they're really good, but only vote on examples that were extended and explained in speech with warrants and implications. We've extended cards from the 1AC with warrants about why that means that China only responds to expanded deterrence through our Fravel evidence and our Bowie evidence as air power is needed to deter them from invading, but they have not extended a warrant from their evidence as to why the U.S. would provoke China to explain the other comment. When this argument means that the case can explain the K, but the other way around cannot be true because they have no internal link to any of our offense. I'll do the liberalism stuff below, but I'm going to go to framework first because it sets up win conditions for each side. If they win framework, we still win the debate because we've defended our representations through Taiwan, but if we win framework, it's even easier to vote out since you conclude that the case that way because Taiwan comes before all of it, and they have no access to it. Weigh the consequences of the plan against the consequences of the link. They dropped the resolution is the only predictable stasis for contestation. The singular verdict is to prove that the plan should happen. Their model focuses the debates on prior questions and issue extraneous to the plan that the app could not have predicted, which rests critical class, that a racist class, in detailed conversation, which turns case solvency. They create advocates trapped in an echo chamber who can critique but never defend against opponents, which means that their model debate is actively worse for skills because it teaches people to create their arguments when the other teams are not prepared to respond, which is not true in the real world. How do you think mutual aid actually gets done? It's by convincing local policymakers that their strategies are successful, which is impossible under their model of debate. Conversely, our model solves and improves the quality of advocacy, arming debaters with the critical skills to carry out the alternative or fight U.S. imperialism. It solves their offense. They haven't answered our middle ground nature of our interpretation of this entire debate. We have not excluded any part of their critique. Links do not need uniqueness, and they get links to structures and representation, but we get to defend what we were prepared to defend in the plan. It shifts the burden of the from justifying their links theoretically to winning that their links outweigh the advocacy that they've said is actively racist, which is not a hard burden. They've conceded their model is hopelessly vague and collapses in on itself. Their links require evaluation of consequences, which means that you cannot evaluate the case without evaluating the case. How do you know representations are bad without evaluating the consequences of those representations? Their link to the K is that SAFs are bad. It is a case term, which is that if you evaluate the consequences of that link, you also have to evaluate the consequences of that plan to determine, because that is the only non-reciprocal, that is the only reciprocal standard of debate. They're often just wrong. They've conceded that KVK does not happen under their model debate because KFs are not topical, which is a burden that we both agree that AFs must be, because they never made an argument about why KFs are theoretically legitimate under their model debate. Fiat is good for cells. Explained above, they can go outside of the state under our model because it improves the quality of advocacy, regardless of where that advocacy starts. No microaggression. We don't think that KVK kids are inherently bad, just that under their model of debate, they would be worse for skills because our model is actually better for those skills. That was all explained above. Infinite prep does not solve our offense. We can't have infinite prep to defend every single random word in the 1AC, every single scholar in the 1AC, and they will always cut new case next to our authors to advocate the impact of that. Prep, radical exportability TA is wrong. The EA cannot solve it because chaos are not topical, and because debate cannot touch uncertainty, but our model enables it through a class and very conversation, all explained above. Now, the liberalism stuff that they did above, liberalism is good, our cards are far better and way more specific than one piece of accidental evidence, the two are barely explained. 2C, Kirkland, Mills, and Koopsey are all defensive. Why is one not anti-black and two redeemable? So even if they win, there are problems with the solution is not to throw it all away. Black people have retooled liberalism towards black radical liberalism in endorsement of free market ideology because those values center individual freedom and autonomy, which demonstrates that even if markets have been bad, it is not inevitable and there can be progressive uses, i.e. projecting Taiwanese independence. 2NR is no example. There obviously are. Co-founders of the NAACP like Story, Beeler, and Lane all prove that our model of debate can incorporate their scholars, other things like Person, Scholar, and Howard, all named into a sequence that you can reference. The only other argument was Taiwan liberalism is not black liberalism. That's wrong when they don't have specific answers to lower evidence. There are black Taiwanese people in Taiwan that do not want invasion, which demonstrates
understands that malleability of liberalism and the necessity of evaluating the case, even if they are not identical, they can be combined. So even if they win, U.S. liberalism is bad in the past, we can use it to advance both Taiwanese and black liberalism. Taiwanese people racist to black people is wrong, not warranted and unsubstantiated by any piece of evidence. Remember, Angelo is about realism and liberalism, not neoclassical realism that doesn't understand states solely through an anarchic IR system that rather understands internal Chinese sentiments, which is our truancy full of evidence. Back to framework really quickly, we never said it was just ad homs, but the fact that they can just assert a voting issue at the end of the truancy is why solely K and episodes goes to that. Do not reject the team. They're worse for KVK because the head K they're reading this debate would never be right in that KVK debate, so they do hurt critical education and affordability. The hegemonic climate politics thing. I only need to win a small race, that is not true because the case massively outweighs, but there's no uniqueness for it. Some level of SAS are inevitable with the Wednesday Gutala evidence, and the card that they read about SAS too. The plan solves greenwashing, which is totally dropped. SAS are emissions negative because they transition away from fossil fuels, reducing use of biofuels and feedstock utilization. It encourages regenerative agriculture, reduces reliance on fertilizer, and enriches soil quantity, which bolsters biodiversity. They also reduce land use, which is backed by the EPA and USDA studies. That's our 180 Cooper evidence. They don't have evidence that cites scientific studies that explain why sustainable aviation fuels would increase land use or hurt the environment. Their evidence says it might be propagated through increased use of fossil fuels in other areas, but the plan solves that by creating more demand and supply for sustainable aviation fuels for all the cars at the bottom of the 180. So if you think that the case outweighs the K, or that we've won framework, then you have to vote out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do the liberalism.
Descartes said. Descartes said.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna get some water to go.
I'll go right
Yo. Sadie. Sadie. Daniel. Daniel.
Is like I remember watching my first college
Door.
meeting, I was telling Phil, like I want to tell you Phil to jump on that shit.
My bad. I sent the extinction card. I forgot to send it in the doc, but I just sent it in a separate document. I forgot to send the extinction card in the doc. I sent it in another doc.
Okay, sure. I can go.
You're good.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, sorry if I was mumbling.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Congratulations to everyone for making it to the Octa finals of the AVA tournament. The decision is a 2-1 for the negative from Long Beach. I will start because I sat. Great debate, although lots of frustrations. Before actual core decision, I will lead with Michigan. I don't think a lot of our arguments were the most strategic. CSU. The Monroe Doctrine was somewhat explicitly passed to ensure American uncontested sphere of influence in South America, for example, and beyond even sort of critical back and forth like that section of the library, I don't think it is controversial to characterize historical consensus as firmly on the side of it was at least very foundational to U.S. imperialism with the Americas. So if the Tuancy said, hey, you said Monroe Doctrine was an example of America being good, what? I'm probably near auto-negative. I start with framework. I think the affirmative is headed. 2NR seems to be answering or preempting a fairness means no K-links. I think the 2NR even uses the verbiage of like, this answers fairness, when 1AR explicitly does not extend that. And the 1AR and 2AR are clearly both going to clash. And forwarding the premise of the question is, whose debates can better access to revolutionary clash? So framework for me concludes I should evaluate the consequences between the consequences of the plan against the consequences of the link. Before the weeds discussion of sort of framework, I think I said this in doubles the issue, but I'm a little bit lost about what framework is specifically getting us in this debate when your core link is SAF bad, and I mean that more as how should I evaluate the plan's research practices, if not also evaluating the consequences of the plan, which the affirmative argues. So, neg KVK is better. I will agree AF had some verbal missteps in both saying this is why KVK is blankly bad and saying we are better for KVK, but I do think their argument is that critical debate should be tethered to competing either policies or material tactics, which is also their framework argument. I think that resolves the sort of exportability discussion and controls the reason KVK debates are good, with them accessing revolutionary clash, which answers epistemic growth for me. Particularly the we need to learn about the military with hedge K, lol, A. The fiat bad debate. I don't think either side really sits on this in a way that I'm strongly moved by. The negative argument of exportability questions, unclear why the model's version of clash doesn't resolve, and why I think the resentment verbiage and the sort of we can't just imagine our way out of violence. The 2R explains sort of skills cultivated by the clash that helps everyone to practice. And I'm a little bit lost because I don't have a clear explanation of how your clash is at all different, which means I don't know what to do with the sort of fiat bad stuff. Granted, I don't think winning framework is damning for the affirmative here, or the negative here, given that the negative sort of top level is we have an argument that also turns the case with external offsets. Other framing aspect, extinction debate. This is so weird, because neither side really answers the other's impact work, I guess. Like, also the 2NR seems to be hedging on like SAF warming is extinction level, and that is how like we're interacting some case stuff. Like you do say, even if we also access extinction, but 2NR doesn't answer extinction outweighs as bad unless I'm missing something. The sort of forces black people to die explanation of 2NR is there. But black Taiwanese people, they exist, as do Taiwanese people, for whom I'm told Chinese invasion constitutes cultural genocide. I'll start with case offense. I think the plan is completely key to avert Taiwanese nuclear war. I also think this is a racial argument consistently a core theme of Ash speeches, structures it as a sort of structural violence-esque argument as well with the cultural genocide arguments. Negative offense, polycrisis. I guess this is where framework is somewhat detrimental for me for the negative, and that absence a material alternative for me, I'm largely relying on the link as turning case and problematizing solvency, as I need the link to understand why the one sees a commitment to eternally doom colonial racial order, especially when I'm lacking all explanation in the 2NR that establishes a try or die ballot as more compelling. Too long to read, I do think the polycrisis warrant isn't properly handled, but I don't know concretely why this is the reason either SAF specifically is bad, outside of the link I'll talk about in a second, or what the uniqueness of this argument is, given that the negative cannot resolve it either, as I'm missing, at least in my mind, a clear alternative explanation beyond just refusal. So the hedge climate lens. I think this is all really, really good, but both sides are just repeating their own SAF good, bad warrant here without real engagement, which for me favors the affirmative. I'm told by the negative it increases emissions, is greenwashing, but I will also say this is due to the late-breaking nature of this specific sub-debate, but the 2NR argument of vote on warrants in the speech card is a little fair. I think this link should have been pulled to the top and been 2 to 3 minutes for the 2NR, considering that if you win it, you win warming, separate impact, and like nothing else is that necessary in my mind. Rather than the bottom and somewhat quickly blitz through, because the card is very, very good. But 2NR warrants are also in my mind consistently dropped. Move away from fossil fuels, reduce fertilizer use, which helps biodiversity, reduce land use. At worst, it's a wash, and even if slightly worse for the environment, Taiwanese invasion, cultural genocide feels largely unmitigated. The root cause, separately, I don't understand if extinction is not the frame I'm using to evaluate this, I'm not given like warming, structural violence, like connecting those sort of pieces where I can just be like, hey, Taiwanese cultural genocide are being like told time and time again really bad. The root cause China debate, I think the negative China mirrors imperialism argument is quite good. I think side point, I mean, evidence is always hard to find, but like 1 or 2 examples of the way in which China's shift from like communism to state-led capitalism has been influenced by American, I guess, globalization or something, would be really good for like that cross moment and concretize this. I also don't think it's quite handled, but the problem is the sort of, well then, like what now and what role an alternative would fill, even if you're right about like, yes, China is mirroring the US, but like how should we prevent Taiwanese invasion? The voters, I think both are sat on, are handled by framework. And to our answer of, we think sort of black radical tradition would support Taiwanese freedom with liberalism, and we think we're better for skills, I think resolves the microaggression aspect. I'm done.
Sure. So I think that the negative is doing a good job both of like essentially winning large indites of the scholarship of the 1AC, both in terms of the kind of structural advantage hedge stuff as well as the SAF stuff. And I think that there are probably routes for me to vote negative under both frameworks, and I think that part of the problem with the way that the affirmative goes for framework in this debate is that they explain it as a reason why it has to prove that the plan is a bad idea, but doesn't really answer the implications that the links have for the way that the app would get implemented. And I think that a lot of the defenses that the app has about things like hegemony and liberalism are like real bad. And I think that the negative is kind of winning the critique as an impact turn to the affirmative, and I don't think that the examples that you all are giving or the warrants that the 1A and the 2A are extending for why kind of the project of the 1AC writ large is good. So I end up airing negative on a lot of questions just based on, you know, what I view largely as like some flippancy by the affirmative on a lot of these questions. I want to start with the framework debate. I think that there are a couple of problems for me for the affirmative. The first is kind of, I feel like laying out like what the implication of the app winning framework is for like the links that they've gone for, but also like how this interacts with or means that they don't get the alternative. Like I don't know what the answer to the alternative at all is in the 2AR, which they have indicated both as kind of a uniqueness counterplan to deal with you know, essentially the reasons that they've identified for why U.S. empire and hegemony are bad. And I just don't really have a line in the 2AR that really speaks to that. And I also don't know why they wouldn't get the alternative. I don't know what the standard is for like material competition or like what standard the alternative has, because the framework debate in this, at least starting in the 2AC and the 1AR, is always that it's just a question of what the burden of the links is. But I don't know why that means they don't get an alt, or they don't get the explanation of the alternative, which means that even if I grant you like the links have to be to the plan, I think they are. And I also think that the negative is winning some reasons why I should prioritize kind of their criticism of your scholarship. And I think that if they win, that kind of the studies of the 1AC or that the structural kind of story of the 1AC is riddled with bad research, then I should be hesitant to think that the plan would be a good idea, even if you have some reasons why it might be a good idea for Taiwan. I think that there's like so much of the structure of the 2NC is like your assumption of like American military doing good stuff ignores the fact that like, you know, Trump says he's gonna invade Canada, he's gonna invade Mexico and Greenland. Like there's no answer to any of this, just like Trump is the president now, and all of your like liberalism is redeemable and can be good stuff. Doesn't speak to anything that the app does to make liberalism good or to make the military more ethical. Like you have reasons why SAF is like more environmentally sustainable, but you've also said it's good because it makes the military better and faster, and they have said that that is bad because American military is violent. I think the negative is pretty far ahead on the question of American imperialism, because your debating of it is just reasons why it could be better, but I don't think that there's much of a reason why I should trust that it's gonna get better or that the app makes it better. And I think that if anything, their alternative and their explanation for why censoring blackness over whiteness is how we would make things better and why the military would not be used to do all of the shitty things that the negative has said it does, and you don't really have like a good response to why I shouldn't be concerned about those things, other than we've only said that the instance of hegemony where we defend Taiwan is good, and I don't know how I'm possibly supposed to vote for this in a world where you are on one hand saying only Taiwan matters, we have one example where we've identified that hegemony is good, and then your entire framework is I have to evaluate the consequences of voting for your plan, which strengthens the military. So like, I don't know how I can on the one hand say, if it's good for Taiwan, then that's good enough for me to vote affirmative, and then on the other hand say, that the consequences of the plan matter, and they have impact turned everything that is not Taiwan. Like, if the app is good for Taiwan and bad for everyone else, that seems like a problem. And I think that you all rely too much on the like, we have an erasure impact, but I don't really know how to compare that to not only the just like extinction stuff that they are going for, but also like black erasure, the Agatha Angelou stuff, your criticisms of that seem to be in the vein of liberalism can be good, but not a reason why the app makes liberalism good. And I think that voting affirmative and making the military as it exists now more efficient doesn't do that. Which means that if they win that the status quo is anti-black and the app, all it does is make the status quo more militarily efficient, I'm not really sure what to do with a lot of your defenses of liberalism. I think that the 1AR needs to spend more time on the SAF good-bad debate because, like, literally what I have on my flow is they have no greenwashing, they've conceded SAFs are good, they reduce land use, et cetera, not really any engagement with a card that was like half of the 1AR, and I do think that like the 2NR could have warranted it out better, but certainly extends enough of the warrants, particularly the greenwashing and the reasons why I should be skeptical of your SAF good studies, which means that like, both under their framework where scholarship matters more, and under your framework, I have difficult time being confident that voting affirmative is good if I'm not sure that your reasons why SAF is like good and sustainable and better than the status quo, I don't have any reason why I should trust those. You say like, it's the EPA and they don't cite science, and they have said that your studies are influenced by the amount of corporate influence that kind of like ethanol companies and other things have over the government. So like, it's difficult for me to square those things when the 1AR just says SAF good is conceded, which it very much is not. Yeah, I think that just like, I have some other like thoughts about the way that this 1AC is constructed. I think that this should have been like more of like the link debating in the block. I think could have been structured in a way that made this debate much less close. Like, there are parts of the 1AC where they say like, you know, deterrence is good, we need to prevent China from invading Taiwan, and then they go to case, and then they say America's not imperialist, it's anti-interventionist, and it's like, what is it? Does the US military deter China, or does the US military not intervene, right? Because their cards about why the US military is non-interventionist is like, Trump is not concerned about global affairs. And there's the only card in the 1AC that was written after Trump was elected is the card that says that China's probably gonna invade Taiwan now. And there's not really much of a discussion by the negative at all of like, if the military was stronger, would we actually use it to deter China from invading Taiwan, right? Like, if they are right that the US isn't imperialist and isn't interventionist, would we actually invade Taiwan? Like, the fact that in the last week, like, Trump has been out there, like, siding with Russia over Ukraine, like, he has empirically seemed to not really care that much about whether or not China invades Taiwan. Like, there should be more of you all, not just, like, problematizing the military generally, but, like, questioning whether they can win both that the US military is, like, non-interventionist and that, like, Trump is a dove, and that the US military, if effective, would then deter China from invading Taiwan. Like, that's like a weird mismatch in some of the cards that the 1AC has put together that I don't really think line up, but I think that it's something that the negative doesn't really attempt to do.
I'll just give my heart. I think that each doesn't have a framework. I think that the 2-year is largely very defensive and lacking the important internal links to how clash and how your model encourages clash and exportability. If I think fiat is the way that we get clash and sort of your model encourages this, I do think it's demobilizing, and I'm not exactly sure if fiat is particularly good at creating exportable politics or it's able to resolve this. I think that there might be a risk that the negative model could be maybe worse for KBT debate, but I do think that they produce a model that creates exportable politics through debates about mutual aid or other grassroots organization. Even if their model is vague, I think that the AF is giving more credence to the negatives model rather than explaining as to why your model is critical to reduce that clash. For the fiat stuff, or like sort of the AF is good for Connor, I don't know how Michigan is able to resolve these, but I do think that Curtis has made an argument that your model creates psychic violence in Ratazatamont through fiat because you're not actually able to go and talk to politicians about passing the plan, whereas their model creates better activist solutions and better exportable politics that is able to sort of resolve that. I don't know how debating the plan is necessary for a subject. Yeah, that was kind of awful. I think that for me personally, I think that fairness probably would have been a little bit more strategic in the 1AR, given that I thought the 2NC was a bit defensive on this, and I think maybe I might be just a little bit better for this now, is that I thought it seemed a little bit more defensive, and I thought Clash was a little bit more offensive and more to wade through. And coupled with the high risk of a case term, which results in existential warning, and the Michigan theory of our elites that are impacts being inevitable, and that SAFs create the conditions for existential warning. Giving the U.S. the ability to have a stronger military encourages conflicts over hegemony and makes warning existential. I think the Collins evidence is quite good in that there's functionally no difference between like airplanes using SAFs and fossil fuels. I think it makes comparing planes. And also greenlights fossil fuel extraction, green colonialism, and other areas. Even if SAFs are inevitable, I think that rejecting them is preferable to making them more salient for productions and all that good stuff. The liberalism debate is confusing me because it seems that both teams are asserting things as opposed to engaging with each other's arguments. I'm not sure how this is offense or a win condition for either team, other than maybe explanations of how their theory works. But I do think that they have that China mirrors American IR as a superpower, which makes more sense given their explanation of anti-blackness being replicated or undergirding Chinese international moves. This is also how I framed feel about the case from which I think that greening the military creates the conditions which encourage war. That's about it. I think for the affirmative, I think maybe for me, you could focus more on hedges good and maybe a stronger defense of the military in the 1AR and pivoting to a more like fairness-based one, which sounds weird because I understand what you're doing and I don't dislike this strategy, but I thought it might be stronger just to defend the military and go for fairness. Like I think that's obviously kind of weird. Obviously it's like perceptually kind of weird, but I think it would be more strategic for you all, just in my humble opinion. For Long Beach, the McDonald's Starbucks thing was kind of a negative aura moment for you all, and a bit confusing and a waste of one in our time. That was the one thing, and I also would like to echo Chris's sentiment about the Monroe Doctrine. I don't necessarily know if the Monroe Doctrine was anti-imperialist. Maybe it protected them from like European imperialism, but you know certainly it didn't help them from American imperialism. So I thought that could be a really strong A, moment for you all, and B, probably an example of how their theory of liberalism or their theory of American anti-colonialism is just colonialism in different packages. That's all for me.
I appreciate all this. I had a couple of questions for us.
Stacey, you want to go?
Yeah, feel free to leave.
I don't know if pairings are out, but we're probably just gonna go. But I have questions for you, Chris, but we can like talk later.
Sure, yeah.
Thank y'all. Good day, y'all.
Do you all mind staying for a little bit?
Oh yeah, I have nothing to do.
Okay, thank you. My first question was for you, Hunter, because DC addressed it more on point. He thought that the Neg 1 framework and rejected the app epistemologically. You talked about framework a little bit, but I think you talked about it in the context of our scholarship was bad. Did you think that they explicitly won a framework argument that was grounds for voting negative?
I started with the kind of case stuff and the link debate.
For sure.
And once I kind of concluded that they had won a lot of that stuff, I didn't think the framework mattered because I thought y'all lost under either framework.
Okay,
Like
so
if the scholarship is bad and it implicates the way that the app is implemented, that seems like you would lose.
okay, where was this like scholarship implicates the way the app is implemented argument? Maybe I missed it, maybe I didn't understand the implication of it, but was it like a circumvention, like literally the plan gets rolled out in a way that's different than what we want it to be argument? Or was it more of just like a serial policy failure thing? Could you explain that?
Well, it's like, I don't think that there is much of a defense of like hedge other than it deters China, and I think that they have made arguments to why if civil society in America and the U.S. military is bad writ large, even if you can deter China, you also do a bunch of other bad things.
So was it literally a case turn that in the status quo, the military collapses, the military is bad because Trump is going to invade Canada, Greenland, and Mexico? Is that the style of argument that you voted on?
In addition to the civil society writ large causes climate change and other stuff.
Why wouldn't Taiwan outweigh in that scenario?
Yeah,
they've said both extinction K, but they also said extinction impact, which we have defense to.
My thing is just after the 2NR, they have an extinction impact, we have extinction impact. So I didn't catch a structural violence type argument that was made in the hegemony debate in the 2NR. So then if we want a larger risk of our extinction impact, i.e. Taiwan, than their extinction impact, which I presume to only be warming, I could have missed another extinction impact based on hegemony, then a guaranteed risk of Taiwan invasion in the status quo would outweigh that structural violence hegemony impact, or is there a different reading that you have?
I don't know what defense you think you have to warming.
Well, SCFs are good for it. It was there.
No.
Well, it was there. Perhaps you didn't think it was very credible, but
Well, it's not defense to warming. It's defense to
It's internal leak
that's
defense.
internal defense to you solving it. But they have said the structure of society emits. You've said that SAFs emit a little bit less. They've also said SAFs are bad, and the 1AR just said you conceded they're good.
Okay, I have a question about that portion. That was not a card read until the 1NR, so why is it, they conceded our warrants from the 2AC and the 1AC. So
I don't think they conceded your warrants when they read a card to answer them.
in the
and said they
1NR,
studied
but the
their
1NC did not answer it, and the 1NR just read the card, did not answer either card in the 1AC. They just read a 3-minute long card. I agree, it's really long, I probably should have read a card. But
I don't even think
I
you need to
know.
read a card. I think you just need to answer the warrant that your
We also
studies
did
provide.
say,
You've the 1AR did not answer the warrants in that card. It just said you conceded it in the 1AC. But so you have to do analysis. You can't just say you conceded it in the 1AC and therefore we're right.
I had a question. Can I ask a question? I had a question about their internal interwarming. So I thought that it was only about sustainable aviation fuels. I didn't catch this part of the 2NR that I think you're referencing, that the structure of society emits.
That was 1NC card.
Yeah, I agree. Was that argument in the 2NR?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is not to flow check you. I genuinely want to make sure that I'm able to give my 2AR in the best way. What two arguments did you have that in between in the 2NR?
I think the top of the 2NR just say drive to slave, unethical research practices. It says, quote, ensures warming and hegemony, permacrisis is I think where they're pulling this from. I think
Top of the 2NR?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed the word warming there, which makes sense.
I think they keep repeating the verbiage of permacrisis, which is where the warming, I think warming's being pulled from, although I did not check.
Why did you differ from Hunter in that respect, Chris?
I think the main thing where I'm different from these two is framework means these things exist in the SQO. So
Okay.
I'm just warming is really, really bad. I don't know. I also don't know where I had the alt on my flow explicitly. I understand the verb's rejection, but for me, SAF bad, the alternative in the SQO is fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So I'm
That makes sense.
and the card is descriptive about the SQO. So I'm just it's more non-sequitur.
I actually agree with Chris, and this is something I forgot to mention. If you just had a line that's they can't solve warming either, even a sentence in the 2AR, I think I'd probably flip out, because I do still think you lose framework, but I don't know how they solve their impact. Even if it is true that maybe you cause warming, there's probably a higher risk you solve your impact than them, because I don't know how they solve theirs, if that makes sense.
That
to
makes
clarify, I don't think that the alternative is very well explained in the 2NR, but I do have it explicitly extended and explained. I just don't know what the 2AR's answer to the alt is, other than to say that you've made a framework.
My understanding of it was that in the 2AR, the top part of the critique where I explained China's rationale for invading Taiwan answered the parts of the alternative that rejected hegemony, because only systems of military influence and deterrence can check back against Taiwanese invasion, which the alternative would reject if it thinks the 1AC is bad. So my question then is, if you didn't think the alternative solved the case, and you thought that they had an extinction impact about warming, and we had an extinction impact about Taiwan, what was the basis for thinking that warming outweighed that?
I think that it is a little bit of a stretch to assume that I will interpret you don't control the root cause of our impact as the alternative does not solve the things that it attempts to solve, which is a general criticism.
Did you vote on the warming extinction outweighs the cultural genocide?
That was part of my decision.
Okay, no, that makes sense. I'm just asking. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm gonna ponder, and you all are welcome to.
I'm asking the person references.
I'm just looking back at my 2A. Did you? I have on my phone the 2R, and the reason that I didn't explicitly go to the alternative as much as I may have wanted to in the 2AR is the alternative rejects the 1AC, it acts as a uniqueness counterclaim because it bans SAF. So which is why I don't think they get solvency then for an entire structure that creates polycrisis, since the only explanation of the functioning of the alternative is rejecting SAF, which I'm like, okay, you reject SAF, we've impact turned that and said SAF good. I just like, the reason why I didn't catch this polycrisis impact is because I don't think there is ever a negative explanation as to how rejection sort of comes to term with solving that.
I did not spend as much time thinking about whether or not the alternative resolves that because I don't have a word about the alternative. Like,
I guess.
I am sympathetic to this alternative being underexplained, but you have to say that in the 2AR.
Yeah, I guess my understanding is that if there's no answer, you default to neg explanation, and I thought the scope of neg explanation was perhaps a little smaller than you did. That makes sense.
Well,
I get that point of your argument. Yeah, I think